Constantly shifting through the time-space continuum, Metron's three disciples observe the universe from the Mobius Couch.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in the Mobius Couch, a time-space interdimensional vehicle from which your three hosts survey the world of comics, comic book movies, manga. We've done it all. If it's a visual storytelling medium, we've covered it here on the Mobius Couch. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Alessandro, one of your three hosts, and joining me as usual are Joe.
Hello. Hey, Al.
Hey,
how you doing,
Joe.
buddy?
I'm
hey,
good.
Patty.
And Patrick.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, it's going.
Hey,
We're talking about Mark Waid and Alex Ross's Kingdom Come, a seminal DC comic. Oh my god! That actually kind of freaked me out. That was scary. That was scary.
Perfect transition time.
Okay. So yeah, Kingdom Come. Let's talk about it. This came out in the mid-90s, I think 94, 95, mid-90s.
You know what? That's the one thing I did. I thought
it was 96.
90s. That's still mid-90s. It's a mid-90s comic. Takes place in the future. It's about aged, kind of golden
94.
age. It was 94. Okay.
94.
I have 96 in my volume.
Maybe that's when the trade paperback came out.
Originally published in single magazine form in Kingdom Come 1 through 4, 1996.
Yeah, in one volume is 1996.
Let's restart. I'm already drunk off this Kylie Minogue wine. Marvels was published in 1994.
The Marvel. Yes, that tracks.
We'll get to Marvels.
Yeah.
So we'll get to all this in a second. Kylie Minogue makes wine?
She does, and it's amazing. But it's hard to find. It's very exclusive.
Wow. Okay. Is it dedicated to all the lovers?
Exclusive.
You know, the bottle is full of little engraved hearts. So, yeah, I could see it being dedicated to all the lovers.
All the lovers. All right. We're not although we do talk about foreign-born pop stars a lot on this podcast, like Carly Rae Jepsen, Charlie XCX, now Kylie Minogue. We are actually a comic book podcast. And so we're going to talk about Kingdom Come, which came out in 1996, we've just established. Mm-hmm. And the general plot idea is aged golden age DC heroes trying to kind of find their place in an edgier post-1980s superhero world. Mm-hmm. Is kind of what's going on, but we're going to, of course, get into more specifics. First of all, let's do overall takes. I'll just go first because I'm already talking. So I loved this. I love this so much. I enjoyed this the first time I read it. I have to say, the second time I read it, I enjoyed it even more because there is Alex Ross's art is very busy. There's a lot going on. The narrative moves pretty quickly. There's a lot that's kind of implied, and you have to sort of do two and two together on your own. There's not a lot outright displayed for you. So I think the second time I read it kind of worked better for me and sort of working as a holistic narrative and kind of the plot through line shown through a lot more and what was really going on.
I was going to say you could absorb more.
I loved it. I think the character work's incredible. I like all the themes involved. I'm not the biggest Alex Ross fan. I'm going to say that outright. I do think his style works with this type of story, referencing Golden Age, 40s and 50s era aesthetics, kind of works for it. Having said that, I'm not the biggest Alex Ross fan. So, I'm still not the biggest fan, but it sort of works for this. So, but we can get into the art later. But overall, I just love this book. I think it's a great book. If you like DC characters and you haven't read this book, read it. I don't know how you won't enjoy it.
Recommendations are for later, Al.
Okay. But no, I thought this is it's just a great product. Good book. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to follow up right on top of that. I loved it as well. I've always loved it. Loved it when it came out. Read it issue by issue. Probably read it 3 or 4 times since then. This was probably 5 or 6. at this point. It has been a very long time since I read it, but that being said, man, it holds up, and it's such a good story, and I really, really love it. And there's such, to Al's point, just there's such nuance in the way that it's written that you do need to pay attention and kind of like pick things up for your own and fill things in. Especially with a lot of the side characters, like that isn't Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman kind of thing. Like if it's anybody else, you just kind of have to be like, I wonder what's going on. What's their backstory there? Like you have to piece it together through very small amounts of dialogue and or scenes that they're in. But I think it's fantastic. We'll talk about it as we go in, but I thought there was some very interesting choices made in terms of like who the powerhouses that are still around at this point in time, and like certain pieces they moved off the board as the writer and artist to craft this story were interesting choices to kind of just be like, let's not use that guy, and they kind of put somebody off to the side. But it's all so artfully done, and the art is. I'm with Al. I'm not the biggest fan of Alex Ross, but he's a spectacular painter. But his art does work best in this scenario when it's like, I don't know, a period piece or referencing the older age of when comic books were like actually published versus like a more modern take. I don't love.
Yeah, he wouldn't if he was doing the Ultimates or something.
Yeah,
it would not work.
Well, first of all, he's one, super photorealistic. Two, paints every panel of every page, which is exhausting, and I can't even imagine how he did it, or how long it took him. But three, like, it's his body types, like are of a certain variety and doesn't like really. It translates great to like the old school Superman that's like lifting up a car versus like modern superheroes that are all ripped with muscles. But anyway. Love this book. Love it to death. My overall take is you should read this.
Yeah, my overall take is exactly the same. I read this a long time ago. Loved it then. Loved it now. It is timeless. It's a classic. I would say, I think if you were to Google top 10, top 5 DC storylines of all time, this is always going to be there. And I think rightfully so. I've mentioned before, I think we did like the JLA issues. I'm a sucker for future storylines. I love seeing different artists and writers' takes on what the heroes are like in the future. I thought it was wonderful where Batman's at, where Superman's at, where Wonder Woman's at. Their dynamics were great. Similar opinion with Alex Ross. I think he's a very talented artist, and in this storyline, because the POV character is a preacher and there's much like biblical undertones, like there is something about his art that is very like biblical. Like they all look like they're it is very
they're gods.
There's some of his character designs I think are the best things I've ever seen. The way he draws the Flash in Kingdom Come, I think is amazing. The way he draws the Flash, though, I've seen renditions of the Flash in like the current costume, and I don't always love. It gets a little bit too realistic. Like I think Al said on the text, it looks like a costume you'd buy from Party City. But overall, I do really like the fact that he keeps the superheroes in that kind of 1940s, 1950s bodybuilder type, where they just have the large physiques, but you don't see all the rippling abs and every single muscle on their body. The story in general is fantastic. I think the history behind the origin of the story is really interesting, and it holds up. Yeah, this thing is 20 years old or 30 years old. How old is this?
30.
30 years old, yeah.
And exactly 30 because it's 24. It's exactly 30 years old.
Yeah. It definitely holds up.
We just went over this.
28.
Was it 94? Oh, yeah, 96. Sorry, right. Marvel's was 94. So it's not 30. Almost.
And it was a very interesting kind of play on where superhero comics were and where they were headed in the 90s and how it got more edgy and stuff like that. And I think
for sure.
It's definitely another thing. I wish we'd done this episode closer to the Identity Crisis, because I think both Identity Crisis and this deal with sort of a similar theme, but pretty differently. Because both, Kingdom Come is about these superheroes who have separated themselves from humanity as gods, kind of rediscovering their humanity and coming back down to earth, right? And Identity Crisis is also kind of about this unmasking the gods and revealing the humanity, but like in a much grimier, kind of more human way. And I just think there are interesting contrasts in, it's basically the same theme, but one is like kind of a darker, grimier version of that idea. But let's do a little bit of background to the genesis of this book. So Patrick already mentioned Marvels. Alex Ross worked with Kurt Busiek on Marvels for Marvel Comics, which was kind of a retelling of Marvel history through the everyman. And this is
through the lens of like reporters, basically, or one specific reporter. Like,
but that's a very that's a very Kurt Busiek construct, because he did Astro City, which is basically a what if DC stories were told through the eyes of an everyman, is kind of what Astro City was like. And actually Alex Ross did a lot of covers for Astro City and character design, so they worked together on that as well. But so they did Marvels, which was that. And then Alex Ross, basically, off of the success of Marvels, went to DC to kind of pitch that for DC. He kind of went with that idea of, I want to do this book for DC. And then DC brought in
him a writer. Usually it's the other way around. Yeah.
And they brought in Mark Waid as the writer. And we've done a Mark Waid book before. He did World's Finest, which we've covered on another episode of this. So if you haven't heard that episode, it's on iTunes and Spotify and all the podcast hosts that you know and love. You can check out that episode. And so, World's Finest, also a very golden age referential.
Oh, also, it's funny because like we only read the first bit of that. We only read the first arc, but like really quickly after that, they revisit Kingdom Come, and they're kind of like currently finishing that arc off. Yeah. And it's like been over 20 issues, I think, at this point.
Right.
Dipping into that world a little bit more.
Yeah, but so DC editors... Yeah, so DC editors hooked up Waid and Ross. And it's interesting that actually Alex Ross was the kind of genesis of the story and not the author.
I'm sure DC was like, you want to do a book for us? Yay! Like kind of, let's find him a writer. I'm sure it was that kind of reaction. But
and so they did
Ross has always said he has like a huge love for comics in general, but like I know like me and myself, like I've always loved Marvel and DC almost equally, but it's always just been like a little bit more DC. Like I always lean a little bit more into DC just because it's the pure superhero sort of in a way. I don't know. Like it's a little less.
Yeah, I've always been more of a DC guy too, honestly.
That's how Alex Ross's sensibilities lie as well. And so like this just spoke to me just right off the bat, like because it's a huge love letter to like deep dark crevices of the DC universe in a lot of ways.
The other thing I enjoy, another similarity to Identity Crisis of why I like this book a lot is it's a contained story where you don't have to read 19 other issues of the heroes books to fill in. It's just 4 extra large issues of a self-contained narrative. And I really appreciate that. It's not this whole you have to buy Wonder Woman
in terms of like 58 through
62 and this,
but it's not like
it's probably about
probably
8.
Double size. Probably about 8. But like it's still 8 is a very concise story in terms of comics. Sometimes, like especially with something this big, it's amazing how layered this can be while getting the point across that quickly. Like it's almost shocking. Like how much they can cram.
Yeah, well, let's get into the specifics in a minute, but like the main thing is, if you don't talk down to the audience and overfeed them with line by line exposition, you can get away with a lot. And B, again, I know we've hit this on other podcasts before. Emotion expresses more than just factual lists. Yeah. And the way Superman acts, the way he references past events, that gives them a weight and an importance that connects with the reader more than just a 38-page summary of exactly what happened with Magog and the Joker, for example.
I had to like reading it this many times, or I don't know, maybe this is five times I've read this, but like, I still had like, oh shit, that's what was going on in that scene. It's granted, it's just like a panel, but like I reinterpreted a panel basically and went, oh my God, I've always thought of that this way, and really it's this way, kind of thing. And maybe I'm wrong, and we'll talk about it when we get there, because it's in issue like 3 or 4. But like, you know, it's one of those things where I'm just like, oh shit, I wonder if that's how they interpreted that, or if that's how I was always supposed to interpret it, or maybe I'm wrong now and it was always the way before. But like, it's interesting how layered it can be just with like a facial expression, or, you know, you might read it some way like, oh, like Wonder Woman's upset because of this, but really it's like, oh shit, she's just in awe, or whatever, you know, like kind of thing, and she's not upset at all, like, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyway. And before we get into like the issue by issue, just so real quick, if for whatever reason, if you haven't read this and you're still listening, just because you love us so much, the main conceit is a preacher is visited by the specter, who is sort of a ghost of Christmas future sort of figure, who like. Yeah. Whatever Christmas, you know, whatever ghost visits.
He takes
Scrooge.
him on a little spiritual adventure.
Yeah, well, he visits Scrooge and he tells him the end times are coming. I'm going to take you on a journey because you can maybe stop it.
I think it's interesting that like Sandman passed it to him somehow. Well, Sandman being like not the Sandman from Sandman Elseworlds comics, by the way, but like, you know, the Sandman from the JSA. Yeah. But, you know, dealing with dreams and having like nightmares of what was to come, the preacher was just sitting at his bedside table, you know, kind of thing. Like, oh, like, you know, I'm just here to comfort him as he passes, but they used to be old friends or whatever. But like the visions pass on to him. And I thought that was like a really interesting, like, impetus to get us into like this brand new character, Norman McKay, that like we followed throughout the whole thing, which, well, I don't know. I loved it.
Right.
And it's just a really cool intro into the whole thing.
And but that's kind of the conceit, is the Spectre just that we're headed for an apocalypse, come with me on this journey. And from there they kind of go back and forth through time and space and sort of see all these events that are leading towards this coming apocalypse, which we later find out is this clash between metahumans that takes place. But anyway, that's the general framing of and obviously because the big theme in this is gods and mortals and all of that, is what, you know, the main character is a pastor, and there's a lot of revelations, apocalypse wording thrown around because
there's
of that kind of thematic content.
Well, I like that the biblical references are thematic though, and not like jammed on your face, you know, like kind of
right.
Sorry.
I think it's pretty clear that this storyline, going back to what y'all were saying a little bit earlier, DC has the more kind of traditional, we don't kill type superheroes, and Marvel was the grittier, we do kill when we need to kill type superheroes. And the clash is the old school versus the new school heroes. Like the new school heroes don't really prioritize. They're kind of like Snyder Cut Justice League. Like they don't prioritize saving lives.
It's similarities just like between how we all appreciate movies and current comic book stuff, like versus how they're made is not lost on me.
Well, this is, like, I mean, Patrick, you're
basically
right.
Us versus the Snyderverse.
No, well, but Patrick, you're right. This is very much a post Frank Miller superhero paradigm versus the Golden Age, we're just heroes paradigm.
Right.
And it's that kind of like a black and white moral code, good, evil, don't kill, protect, versus this post 80s edgier, you know, crime is great, the city's a bitch.
We'll get there, but like one of the main like fights that's alluded to on the very first page is that Wonder Woman and Batman ultimately disagree about killing anyone ever.
Yeah.
He's just like, it doesn't matter. You don't kill, like, period. And she's like, there's times when you have to. And he's like, no, there's not. You know, and that's a huge deal. Because, I mean, again, coming from current day comic movies and what we read all the time, like, Batman just blows fucking people up. Like, it's not a big
that's
deal.
One of my favorite moments is how much the comic really stresses that Superman and Batman really connect on that one point of no one must die.
Yeah.
Even though we do see them, they have very different strategies and methods by which they do that. But one point,
at the end of time,
neither Bruce nor Clark, or Cal, I guess he's not Clark in this, but Cal and Bruce never disagree on the one point of like, no one must die.
Right.
Life is sacred, and we don't cross that line. And I love that because that's just classic DC structure. So I just love that part of it.
Well, I also, my one little tidbit that I found out doing a little bit of back story research on this, Alex Ross, so Magog is basically the Superman of the new generation of edgier heroes that kill.
Yeah.
Magog was based off of at least his aesthetics were based off of Shatterstar and Cable, who are both Rob Liefeld creations.
Yeah. There's quite a few like sketches in the back that are like, we basically said, because he didn't design everyone, for instance, but like he was like, we basically said, just make it like Rob Liefeld made Captain America or whatever, that kind of thing. Like make it like that kind of.
Well, let's talk about the design of it. No, he very much was. I mean, there were interviews where Waid and Ross both basically said the new breed of heroes are all pastiches of like early 90s, just off the rails character design, including, like Patrick said, Rob Liefeld, who's like ground zero for just pouches everywhere and nonsense, biotechno mess humans, whatever. But so, Magog definitely has like Cable eye and metal, that kind of like metal V frame thing that's very Cable Liefeld-esque. Americommando is very Judge Dredd, right? I mean, I know he's like American with like the eagle on his dick.
Oh yeah, he's
very Judge Dredd shoulder spalder.
As well.
So a lot of you can see a lot of references to these late 80s, early 90s, like gritty, insane comic heroes.
666, the guy with the tattoos on, he's got a lot of Judge Dredd in him as well.
And I mean the what's the German dude in the Gulag?
Bach.
Von Bach is very like Frank Miller's Joker times Bloodshot. Like he's just got like a giant tattoo. He's just that whole thing.
I love that idea. Like he's all tattoo, and then like the places where there is a tattoo, that's his regular skin. Yeah. And I was like, that's kind of a
it's funny because this is from '96, but that's like a trend now with tattoos where people just get their entire body inked in black
and then leaves white spaces.
So it's just blackface.
Like that's what
blackface with
tattoos. Machine Gun Kelly just did that, didn't he? He just covered up all of his old tattoos with just black ink.
Good for him.
Von Bach, I think Von Bach's original design was a giant swastika on him, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, but he loved that so much he kept it, which I thought was funny because there's like that other guy named Swastika. And it's just like, it's just that motif. And I'm like,
but also that's Frank Miller. But that's also very Frank Miller. Doesn't Joker have a follower who has a swastika tattoo, like on her boobs or something?
Yeah, she has swastikas on her nipples.
Jesus, Frank Miller. Okay. Let's never do a Frank Miller comic on this podcast. Another Magog note, the Ram's Head helmet. So they specifically wanted to do a... because of the religious subtext and these new gods who are like killers and all that, they really wanted to give like an Old Testament idolatrous ram's head iconography to Magog. So that's why he has that ram's head. Also, the name Magog is in the Revelations. It's like a Magog is a tribe of people who war against Israel against the end times. So it's
like pagan idolatry. But then also there's like I think it's a direct reference to some sort of, it's something from the Bible, a tribe that fights God's people or whatever.
Yeah, but it's like in Revelation, right? But I just wanted to say, like, Magog is very much a Cable, like Liefeld, but also times like heretical idolatry.
He's also just straight Cable, like metal arm.
Well, the eye too. Yeah, the eye is very.
Yeah. What were you saying, Patty?
Well, no. So this is kind of a tangent, but they tried to do a sequel to Kingdom Come, and Mark Waid and Alex Ross had very different ideas of what they wanted to do. So Waid wrote, I think, just The Kingdom, and I didn't read that. But Alex Ross had the chance to kind of do his sequel in the JSA comic, and Dr. Midnight goes through like what Magog means, and I didn't fact check it. I'm assuming Alex Ross knew what he was talking about.
There was a villain named God.
Apparently, like, well, yeah, but like Magog and Gog, apparently there's references to those two names in like all kinds of different religious literature.
Oh,
which
interesting.
I
did not know that. Interesting.
And to Al's point with the ram's head, or that's very
Magog has a ram. Yeah, ram horns.
It's like I guess it's very satanic, right? Isn't that one of that's like a big Satan symbol, isn't it?
Yeah, I just mean in the interviews I read, they didn't mention Satan specifically, but they just wanted it to represent kind of pagan.
Yeah, it's just, I don't think it's supposed to be like Satan, I think.
Right.
But the ram skull kind of motif is
well, so in The Witch, Black Phillip was a ram,
classic
and he
villain
is
shit.
Satan. Yeah, in Robert Eggers' The Witch, Black Phillip is a ram, and he is Satan.
There you go.
I've never seen that.
That you don't want to live deliciously, Patrick? That's all part of the package.
I love the I mean, the Planet Krypton restaurant's hilarious. There's a lot of like really fun references and stuff, but like
let's get we need to get into this. We can hit on all this as we talk about it, but we've got to start talking about all right, so issue 1, right, so we already mentioned the Spectre comes to summon Norman McRae, the preacher, and kind of takes him on a journey. So he catches up with some heroes. So we find out that Superman, Kal-El, he kind of retreated from the world after an event that we'll reveal later. But an event happened that he wasn't happy with, and so he basically said, I'm done being a hero then. The world has moved on. Doesn't appreciate the old gods anymore, and I shall remove myself from this plane. So he goes to what, like a holodeck in the Fortress of Solitude? Is that where he is, basically?
I guess.
He's in the Fortress of Solitude. He's just farming,
so.
you know.
He's in a hologram. It's not real.
He's in a hologram, so I don't know if it's the Fortress.
No. I mean, no. It's just the sky. It's like faking the environment. He's in a giant room that he's farming in.
But is that in the Fortress?
Yeah, it's in the Fortress. Yes.
Okay, it is.
Like,
all right, so
it's like a giant warehouse in the Fortress that he has farmland, that he's growing things and has animals. But the walls and ceiling are fake to make it look like it's Kansas or it's like open air. And like one of them even turns it off, and he's like, "You're freaking the animals out," you know, like kind of like, "What's wrong with you?" kind of thing.
Didn't y'all think it was weird that he was living his life as Clark Kent, but he hated people calling him Clark throughout the story? I thought that was kind of interesting.
I mean, did he hate it? I think he had just like left it behind. I don't think it was.
But Patrick, I think that was very intentional. That because that's the struggle he's struggling with is. Mm-hmm. He divorced himself from the world because they turned their back on him, but he did grow up in Kansas and is still somewhat human. And so I think it's sort of supposed to illustrate that struggle of,
right.
I still kind of feel human and I have those sensibilities, even though I've gone back to Olympus and don't interact with humans anymore. So I think it was intentional, Pat, to just kind of showcase that.
So before Spectre shows up, the event that kicks this book off basically is that Magog had like cornered with a bunch of other dangerous superheroes, had cornered the Parasite or somebody, and had basically Captain Atom had been split, and like basically, you know, it's like splitting an atom. So, you know. Giant explosion.
Well, so I wanted to
kills like millions of people, and then that's the impetus of like Wonder Woman going to Clark and being like, "Hey, can you come back and help? This is getting fucked up." And
so, a couple things. One thing, Kansas is a flyover state. There's no way there's millions of people living in Kansas. There's maybe 3.
I think it was way more devastating than just like a bomb.
Okay,
I think it went further than. You know, and also
Kansas City is in Missouri. Anyway, like no one's in Kansas. It wouldn't be 2 million people dying. That state has maybe 5 people.
I don't know the number.
Okay, I don't know anything about Middle America. I don't intend to learn anything about Middle America. I don't think that many people live in Kansas. However, the main point I wanted to make, actually, it was Identity Crisis when Firestorm dies in a similar explosion.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I want to talk about superheroes that are nuclear reactions in a fabric suit.
Immediate casualty numbers close to millions, to a million, as the dying atom's radioactive energy.
What does that mean?
Of kilometers.
What does that mean?
More initial numbers.
Joe, I want to make a point. I just want to make the point. Yeah. If you are nuclear reactions contained within a fabric suit, don't go fight crime. Stay at home.
I
Don't put yourself in danger.
Liquid metal or
agree.
I mean, we've seen this with Fire. We saw this with Firestorm in Identity Crisis. We saw this with Captain Atom here. You're too dangerous. Don't go out there. Don't go out there. Because if they cut your suit, it blows up.
Also,
I don't think it was that it cut his suit. I think it's that it split his suit and then also split whatever energy is inside of it.
It's the same point, Joe. Joe, it's the same point. Stay at home. Don't put yourself in danger because you're going to blow up.
I think my point is, if you're Captain Atom, you can fly and you can shoot lasers out of your hands. So why get that close to the parasite to begin with? Why not just
why do it?
Keep your distance a little bit.
He's also strong.
Like, I don't.
But also, doesn't Parasite steal powers?
Yeah, he does. He drains. He drains.
He's touching Captain Atom. He shot Captain Atom with his own power. That's what he's doing.
Like it's way more Captain Atom's fault than Magog's
100%. He should be Captain. Stay at home. Like just don't put yourself in that situation. But okay, so that happens.
Anyway,
and millions of people dying. Quotation marks.
Goes to see Cal and says what happened, and he goes, looks, and he goes, Magog, and then he just goes, "There's nothing I can do from here. Go back to your island, Diana. You're safe there." You know, like as in, this is what I was worried about. This is why I left in the first place. I'm definitely not coming back. Like fuck off, you know, kind of thing.
We have to talk about Diana. So I know
I love her look.
I just want to say, I know I've criticized.
The design is so simple. It's just like, let's make this look a little bit more like armor, and let's give her back her like loincloth warrior outfit.
The loincloth, yes.
But it's also a reference to her original design of like
look at that.
Yeah.
Of just like a skirt instead.
I know I've talked about Alex Ross's art negatively. I just want to say those hips and those Chun-Li thighs.
She looks awesome. She's like bodybuilder style, real Amazonian, and not just like some supermodel with like super.
I mean, she could crush a watermelon or my head between those legs, and either one is fine with me. Is all I'm going to say.
Also, Clark has never looked better in his entire life. I don't think.
Are you serious?
You know what?
You like that 50s bod? You like that like old school?
I agree. It looks great.
The overalls, the ponytail.
The overalls.
Yeah. Okay.
You
so
want
Patrick,
farm boy, Patty.
Wow. Okay, so you're into that kind of like pudgy 50s bodybuilder look.
I like the.
He looks like Bobby Atlas's mail order catalog of like how to work out in your backyard.
They reference it way later.
Totally into it. Yes.
Okay.
But I really love.
It's not Bobby Atlas. Charles Atlas. What was that bodybuilder's? Anyway, some kind of Atlas.
I have no idea.
50s.
I know who you're talking about, but that was like a million years ago. Before our time. I love how they reference like, and it's subtle, and they throw it out there periodically, but like basically Cal is way more invulnerable and stronger than he ever has been because he's just
he's like a Viltrumite. He's sort of like a Viltrumite where he's grown stronger.
He's not getting weaker as he gets older. He's getting more invulnerable and stronger.
That was one interesting
Lex
thing.
references it with like the fact that kryptonite won't do anything.
Yeah, they can't use kryptonite anymore.
Yeah, it's like that's not going to help, and blah blah blah. And then I think there's another few on the nose references, but like there's another
actually, like, Patrick. Now that I'm looking at that one panel of the kind of down skirt shot down his overalls from like the upper angle. I mean, he's built.
Like,
he's that daddy's built
from Eve for Extinction.
Wow, he's all right. I gotta see.
You guys,
I gotta say,
Patty, I know you do. Do you remember that panel of Wolverine and the?
Yeah. All right. So I don't want to bury the lead.
Yeah.
Superman and Wonder Woman fuck in this, and they should fuck. Like they are two people who should definitely fuck. Like they are built. They did the New
52. They put them together, and I was like, about fucking time.
They got to. Like, yeah. They are both just built humans who should be fucking. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and of course they're just gonna make like the greatest of offspring. Like, obviously, you're gonna
probably
Superman / Wonder Woman in one person. Maybe you have multiple kids, and you'll have multiple of those.
Well, hopefully, and hopefully,
what better way to cement your legacy in the future than to make the next Superman? You know.
Yeah, well, hopefully they don't. Hopefully they don't fuck over the ocean as they do in The Dark Knight Strikes Again and cause a tsunami. So hopefully they maybe have sex in space or something.
Fucking Frank.
Frank Miller. But they should definitely be together. So anyway, what were we talking about? Yeah, so Wonder Woman goes to tell Clark that he's needed because of what happened in Kansas. Like, we need to go back.
So we get like a
before we got sidetracked by how good
8 pages
Diana was.
montage of like, this is kind of the current status quo of all the other superheroes from their time that has kind of left, or how they've become.
So let's do it. Roll call formation. So we've got Alan Scott, Green Lantern, has basically permanently made a medieval knight's armor out of his ring around himself.
So
and
here's
a
one
space
note.
station.
Never knew that was Alan Scott.
Oh,
What?
yeah.
Never knew it.
Did you think it was Hal? Who'd you think it was?
Yeah, I thought it was Hal.
Okay. No, I
All
always
this time,
sort
like,
of knew it.
first of all, they never say his fucking name, like not once. Like,
no, but
it's
don't
not
they?
like they're like,
doesn't he
Alan,
talk
blah, blah,
about
blah.
Jade? Doesn't he mention
Nope.
Jada's daughter? And
She's like near him sometimes, but like they never speak, they never talk about it. Like, it's never like very well. I guess my brain just immediately went, "Oh, that's obviously Hal Jordan," and then I moved on with my life.
I think I
and
always
it wasn't
assumed
until like reading it recently that I was just like, "Oh, that's fucking Alan Scott. He's still alive." You know, like I was mind blown.
Yeah, I
That's
think
another
I
reason
just
I was
assumed.
like, he's too old. You know, but I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I just assumed it was him. I think because Jade was in it so much, I just assumed like, all right, well then that must
does
be
make
Alan
sense. Well,
Scott.
also his son
yeah.
Obsidian's in it too.
Yeah.
I think
So,
there's like
I
a
think-
subtle thing where they're talking about like children of the original heroes, and there's like a panel of
maybe.
Jade.
Well,
like,
if it jumps
but
out
it
at you
is.
when we're flipping through, point it out because I would love to
I
see it.
remember.
'Cause
I remember
only
the first
learned
time I
that by
read
reading
this. Yeah,
extra
like
material.
extras. Yeah. I remember reading it the first time, trying to figure that out the entire time, and I was like, I feel like it's Alan Scott, even though that doesn't.
Well, so
make
at the time it was
sense,
Kyle,
but
so it wasn't even Hal, you know. So like at the time when this came out, Kyle Rayner's.
Oh yeah,
like,
Kyle was in the
Green
jail.
Lantern. I was like,
he
well,
was
clearly
the
not Kyle,
GL.
so it must be Hal.
Yeah.
And then I just left it there. It didn't even like dawn on me that in their current brain, Hal has gone villain and gone off the rails.
Yeah.
So if it's not Kyle, then it's Alan, and then, which makes complete sense. But like for some reason, I was like, it's not Hal? Oh, fuck. Okay. Also, Alan's never really been like guard ship in space mode. Like that was never his deal. You know what I mean?
True. He was never involved
when
with
he
like the Green
retired into
Lantern
space in
Corps
the space
stuff.
station. That seems like a more Hal Jordan kind of thing to me. So like I don't know. I just assumed.
But we also get the Flash, and we find out that the Flash is basically doing what the Flash should always have been doing, which is basically in Central City, he is in all places at all times.
Yeah, he never
and just
stops
cleaning
running.
up crime
And just cleans up
instantaneously.
Also, this is Wally West, and then they retconned it later on to be an amalgamation of Barry and Wally and Jay, and I hate that.
That's not true.
my
In
brain,
the creator interviews, Alex Ross and Mark Waid specifically says it's Wally West, and so it's Wally West.
Yes, that's my point. It was always Wally West, and in later years, they've since retconned.
I don't
that
accept
to be-
that.
I don't accept it either because Wally's the greatest.
Yeah, I just simply don't
That's all I'll
accept
say on
this
that
is
matter.
Wally. Yep.
Hawkman, not Carter
that
Hall or
I don't think that's Carter Hall. I think that's a
no,
different.
it's none of them. It's not.
I think
like
this
an
is
Egyptian god. Or
so Hawkman has hawk legs.
Well, again, it's not a human anymore. It's like
It's a
whatever
weird
reincarnation of an Egyptian god he was
It's
in the
a
first
weird-
place. It's that god. It's
He
not-
doesn't have hawk eyes like in
Yes, he does.
Identity
He's got
Crisis.
a hawk mouth.
He has a hawk mouth, but hawk leg. It's a strange Hawkman. It is a strange Hawkman.
I know
It's,
it's ridiculous, but I'm going to point it out because I love the Legion of Superheroes, and we talk about them way too often because I love them to death. But they do quickly allude to the Legion of Superheroes, only in reference to the fact that Superboy and Supergirl have both gone to the future and lived with them, and so they're not around anymore. But eagle-eyed viewers will note that it is the Legion of Superheroes that me and Patrick and Alessandro all love the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least I do. But I was like, oh, there's Axis, there's Invisible. Yeah, that's my Legion of Superheroes. That's the best version. Good job, boys. But like, I do just love that because you know they're awesome.
Also, okay, so going down the roll call, Batman, it turns out, is now Bat Robots. It's just an army of Bat Robots kind of patrolling the city because it looks like Bruce kind of has some kind of spinal injury because he's got a...
I think he's just broken.
He's old. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Put
it's
his
just
body
years
through
and
it.
years of deterioration of like his joints and muscles.
Yeah,
because his
'cause
muscles
that's-
are still there. It's just his joints probably are broken
joints
down.
are bad. I mean, in The Dark Knight Rises, his knee joints were already shot, and he was
Yeah.
only like
And he'd only been doing it
35
for, like,
years old.
5 years, yeah.
So he's definitely gone.
I think so. The reasoning I love behind that, and it comes around later, but we'll probably never circle back around to it. So it's like basically Bane and somebody else had found out who his identity was, ripped his mansion, like just destroyed his mansion, but after everyone knew who he was like, oh well, I could just be Batman like all the time now. I don't have to fake this Bruce Wayne thing anymore. So he just keeps being Batman, but as he got old, like that, hence the robots that just patrol for him and do all the. So he just sits kind of Batman of Beyond kind of style. It sits in the
sort
Batcave
of, but without Terry and just
but
robots
without Terry,
instead of Terry.
and just man's robots.
He mentions though, Bruce mentions that basically all of his rogues gallery was murdered by someone called Genocide who blew up Arkham Asylum.
Yes,
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
that was an interesting
Which
little
would be
dynamic.
Probably after the Magog incident that will come.
Yeah, I think Genocide was probably one of the newer breed of heroes.
Yeah. Genocide.
Magog sets an example like Superman did, and then it all goes to shit, basically.
But so, okay, we're going through all these heroes that we meet because Wonder Woman and Superman have decided to kind of reintroduce themselves back into the world and rein things in from the new generation.
Well, and that's the revelation at the end of this issue is that Superman is going to come back, even though he told her to fuck off.
Yeah. And we see it happen because Americommando and some other crazies are at the Statue of Liberty doing weird shit.
No, that's next issue.
It's not issue 1? Isn't it still issue 1?
Issue 1 is like Joker's daughter and Mr. Terrific and I don't know, Annihilate.
Oh,
big
that's
robot thing. Anyway, people are dying. There's a big modern superhero.
That's true. American Commandos issue 2.
And people are getting hurt, and they're not caring about the people getting shot next to them and stuff. And then basically Superman swoops in, and Norman McKay is like, "What?" Witnessing this with Spectre, and he's like, "Fuck yeah, Superman's back. Everything's fine." And he's like, "Oh no, the Visions are still here." And that's kind of like the whole point of the
and then you find
Superman
out
returning didn't fix everything.
No, in fact, it was a next step towards the apocalypse was coming. Okay, so then issue 2, right? That begins with Americommando and the Americrazies at the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, they're continuing on this like mission of like, I'm back now. Let's clean up this.
Yeah, and this time Superman rolls up with his whole crew. He's got Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Hawkman, Power Woman. Another. I mean, how much time do y'all have to talk about Power Woman?
All day. I really
I have no notes. No notes on her design
or like bigger, stronger, like bodybuilder type physiques. Like I think
Power Woman is jacked.
She's jacked. She is jacked.
Jacked.
She's less jacked in the book than in the sketches of her. They were probably like tone it down, a little, or something. But like
she's still
big.
She's another one that between her legs she could crush a watermelon or my head, and I'd be fine with either one. I'd be fine.
She could crush the Statue of Liberty between her legs.
She is. But so, like we were talking about character design. Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's on the note. Character design. So Dick is back as basically the Batman of the Justice League now, and he's
as Red Robin. Yeah, but he's Red Robin. Yeah.
But I really like the Keaton-esque nods there. I mean, he kind of referenced it in terms of like. It's more about like Dr. Midnight from back in the day, and like kind of like it's how I would see Dick becoming Batman, but not being Batman kind of suit. And I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
But it still kind of has like some Keaton vibes, like to the cowl and the boots, sort of.
Yeah. And he also he does a very Batman move where we get this smash cut to kind of these like Brainiac twins inside the Statue of Liberty who are manipulating things, and he just kind of sneaks up behind them and stealthily takes them out, which is a very Batman move. It's like very, good on him kind of thing.
Saying that I really love Dick's daughter, Nightstar.
Oh, she's awesome.
She's my favorite new addition.
Production side note: originally, Dick and his daughter. It's Nightstar? Was that her name?
Nightstar, yeah.
But
it should be Nightfire, shouldn't it? Nightwing, Starfire, Nightfire.
Well, but that's
I feel like that's better. It's a better name.
But originally, in a Mark Waid, Alex Ross interview, they mentioned that Dick and his daughter had a really meaningful subplot that would
About the
mirror
generation gap.
about the generation gap that also mirrored Norman McCrae's subplot with his
McKay.
daughter, McKay, sorry. But so McKay and his daughter were also characters originally, and like their subplot would mirror Dick and Night Stars, but then they ended up scrapping all of that because it was too much. So
You
they
know what?
just
I like that they
removed it.
scrapped it because I love the story as is, and maybe it would be awesome to see like, I don't know, deleted scenes, so to speak, be like maybe reinserted at some point in time, or maybe like director's cut. Let's add in all that stuff. But like, I love the subtlety of that relationship. Like, their Night Star throughout the whole thing is like, yeah, I heard my dad's back, and also fuck that, I'm gonna go with Batman, you know, kind of thing. So like, it's like subtle and it's there, but like she's even talking to Scott and Bartis. Yeah, and she's like, "Are you gonna do this?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, dude, that was Superman. Are you fucking kidding me? I feel like I just got called to be like one of the greatest heroes of all time, you know, kind of thing." And then she doesn't say one thing one way or the other, but then she clearly is on Batman's team later, and you're just like, interesting. But then by the end, again, it's just a panel, but like Dick has been wounded in the battle, and she's like cradling his head, and like it's in his lap, kind of thing. And I was just like, that's fucking. That's
I think
so,
she
like,
flies off with him.
Yeah. It's probably why he's alive.
What? Yeah.
But like, you know, it's just one of those things where I was like, that's such an interesting, like, it's all there still. It's just not written into the text of the book. Like, it's like the beats are there for that arc. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I think I love the subtlety, but I don't know if I'd ever want to actually see that version of it. But at the same time, you know, give me another version of Kingdom Come, I'll read it again.
Right. And then later, so now we get in this issue, the first interaction between Cal and Bruce. And it's sort of interesting because so Cal goes to Bruce and basically tries to recruit him into his, like, we need to get back into the limelight, show the world what positive superheroes
He's like,
really
I've been
are.
here the whole fucking time, bro.
Yeah. Once Cal leaves, then Bruce reveals that he's already kind of created his own league of street level crime fighters like Ollie Queen, Original Black Canary, Catman. It's not Catman, Wildman, Wildcat.
Ollie and
it's Wildcat's kid, I think.
Wildcat's kid.
Wildcat too.
But I like that
Batman has a network of other Batmen throughout the entire world, apparently.
Yeah, basically
he basically has the Batman Incorporated. He's got like the Batman Incorporated thing going on.
Yeah. He's got like a network of like heroes and he's like subtly manipulating shit in the shadows.
Right, but I loved that construct they did of like Superman and his gods, like Green Lantern, the Flash, Wonder Woman are just in the open doing their thing, and then Bruce kind of brings his street level gang together to, you know, enact a more
level. I think it's just human.
Well, right, human level, yeah, like human level gang kind of to enact
like
their own plan.
Shit on a high level. It's just they're not.
But it's a human level, and Bruce is dealing. You know? And later we find out in his dealing with Lex Luthor and stuff that Bruce is like really dealing on kind of a human strategic, tactical level. Whereas Superman and his gods are dealing on a more just sort of out in the open, godlike display.
His end game is
level.
Keep humanity alive. I don't care how I do it, kind of thing. Like it's just like no one dies, and we stop crime and stop murder, and you know, everyone stays alive. Read the bit about the poster, and it's that initial scene. It's that initial image, the eagle versus the bat in the sky. You know, did you read that bit about that, Al? How it was like people misinterpreted that as Superman, and they were like, "Oh fuck, that's Wonder Woman." So let's like not tell anybody, and so it'll be a big surprise at the end when it's like Batman versus Wonder Woman versus like, because it's quite like obvious that it's probably Superman versus Batman again, you know, and that you know Dark Knight Returns kind of style, and everyone's just assumed it was Superman, but really it's Wonder Woman, and they're like, "Oh shit, people misinterpreted that. Let's not tell anybody. This will be a great surprise." And I fucking love that because I can literally remember that poster image and going like, I was like, I wonder, is that Superman or Wonder Woman? I can't tell. And I was like, it wasn't like I was like, oh, it's clearly Wonder Woman. I'm not that smart. But I was just like, is that supposed to be Superman or Wonder Woman? I don't understand. Like the stars and stripes are there, but the eagle is kind of Superman's thing. And I was kind of like, but I saw also Wonder Woman's thing. And I was like, kind of like back and forth in my own head about it. And like reading this like 28 years later, where they're like, oh yeah, we totally like meant that to be Wonder Woman. And when no one knew about that, we were like, let's bury this so no one figures it out, kind of thing. And I was like, that's fucking hilarious.
Well, this is the first time you see Wonder Woman's eagle armor, is it not?
Yeah, but it's
the
always
golden armor
there. Oh yeah, it's the first time the armor.
Yeah,
exists.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was around historically, but yeah, she definitely dons it.
I mean, she used to have the
armor,
eagle,
but like she has the eagle on the chest.
Yeah.
But for years and years, it was just the W, across her breast. So
but
like it wasn't like an obvious eagle.
And we also get introduced to the villains in this because Lex Luthor, who basically looks like Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk in the Daredevil show, he looks exactly like it. I mean, he is.
He acts like
I was going to ask you
he
guys,
is Fisk.
Who does Bruce remind you of? Because I know the actor that he used for like the facial expressions is like a no-name, like random guy that he took photo reference of. But there's so much Sean Connery with the white hair and the dark eyebrows, and Marlon Brando with the white hair and the dark eyebrows, and like a little Clint Eastwood. And I'm like, who the fuck was he modeling?
Yeah, I was gonna say he reminds me a lot.
Crazy.
He reminds me a lot of Brando, or
it's Brando, right? Is it?
But
Brando?
it's Brando times old Patrick Warburton.
Interesting.
Like if you make the two of them one old man.
I think I think it's Brando mixed with whatever the actor is that he used for the face.
No, it is the hair. I think it's the hair is very older Brando. That kind of comb over hair is very older Brando.
Pretty sure it's John McCain. I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for.
Okay,
John McCain.
McCain. It's John McCain.
John McCain famously captured. My heroes don't get captured.
There's a lot of this issue is a lot of like Superman and Wonder Woman.
I do want to mention back to the villains. Sorry, that was a joke. I of course respect
I think
our
you're
POWs.
talking about something after what I'm talking about, but it's all right. Go ahead.
But I want to talk about one aspect of the villains cabal I loved. Selena Kyle and Eddie Nigma together, a couple.
I was going to reference that.
Just like in Lonely City. Yeah, just like in Lonely City, they're together.
Isn't that funny? Is that where they pulled that
from? They must have. Lonely City must have pulled from this, where they're together, right?
Also, Edward looks straight. He looks straight out of the cartoon. Like, it looks just like a realistic version of the animated series.
Well, I also liked, he had all these passive aggressive jabs at like Luthor was saying like, we'll have a shining future for humanity. And he was like, mankind, or don't you just mean you, rich guy? He had all these passive aggressive jabs.
He's great.
And Luthor kept saying, he would just kept saying like, Selena, shut him up. Why isn't he like, get him out? I loved it. Nigma was great. Yeah. And we also get our first hint at Captain Marvel.
Terrifying.
We don't know yet that like he's been, mind wiped, but he's it's creepy.
Something's wrong with him because he's on Luthor's team. So you're like,
definitely,
well, something's fucked up here.
Yeah.
But I love the fucking reveal that it's just grown up Billy Batson. I love that idea that like who he's been turning into all this time as a kid with the magic is basically his actual face as an adult. And
but he's also is he? Where does he get that muscle from? He obviously works out.
That's the point. He's just strong built dude.
Where does he go? Does he go to the gym? What's he doing?
He works out every day.
I never see him go to the gym in any of these bands.
This issue is a lot of like Superman's crew cleaning up dangerous supervillains / heroes. It's really heroes,
including Von Bach.
Yeah, including Von Bach. And then
there was a line that always stuck with me. With this is when Norman McKay is asking the Spectre questions about Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and the Spectre breaks them down to like just one sentence each, and he says, "Batman." He goes, "Batman, the zenith of human fortitude and ambition. Superman is the pinnacle of otherworldly power, and Wonder Woman is a paradox. She's both an ambassador of peace and a master of warfare." And those three like descriptions is like always stuck with me from the first time I read this story.
Also, the imagery in those panels are
spectacular.
Also, Wonder Woman is very in that framing is very Athena-like. Because, in Greek mythology, Athena was a goddess of warfare, but also wisdom and kind of defensive warfare. So it's kind of that duality is.
I thought it was interesting that
was
in those panels, Superman and Batman get kind of classic old covers, but redrawn and painted by Alex Ross, and kind of twisted a little bit to make it like more realistic, I guess. But then there's Wonder Woman, and she's riding a horse with a spear and like literally just like in warfare, like just all out war. There's clearly soldiers all around her. She's like about to chuck a spear into somebody. That's not old Wonder Woman comics. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's interesting that they were like, let's lean heavy and hard into like who Wonder Woman is currently, and maybe not homage so much to her past because it was just bullshit. But whereas like Superman and Batman, they're like, oh, those are legitimate comics. But,
yeah. And there's
Wonder Woman was basically just bondage porn and
gotta spice her up a little bit.
Yeah. And a lot happens in these issues. So pretty much what's happening is Superman's group is basically gave an ultimatum. Gave an ultimatum of, we're going to
join us.
Superheroes stop killing people.
To join them. You just need to stop killing people.
Yeah, stop killing people.
Yeah.
Or
they don't way or don't do it at all.
And there's the or is kind of an implied threat that they're not sure yet, which is what this issue is about, because they go visit Atlantis and Apocalypse in search of sort of a place to stash heroes who won't reform.
Something to do with the ones that don't agree.
So basically Von Bach
and can't kill them. That's the opposite of what we're trying to preach.
Right.
It's like typical Superman problem solving though. Like, where's the phantom projector? I guess he lost it. So like,
just put them to the side. Like, it's typical. Like, let's just move them to the side.
The fortress. He doesn't like to use it unless
Superman
it's friends with lead poisoning.
Superman is scary.
Then he'll leave him there for 1,000 years.
That's a few thousand years. The Superman shows up at this metahuman bar, and the first thing he does is he uses his heat vision to destroy all of the alcohol behind the bar. And I'm like, that was kind of a dick move.
I didn't. So I have a real. So I get
but I was also in my brain as I'm drinking. I went, "That's a bad way to get them on your side."
Well, and I do think this is probably the author's intent, but I thought it was weird because it seems, to say don't kill anybody. Sure. But now he seems to really be going like a hyper moralistic route of alcoholism. Nightclubs are bad. Dancing is evil. No alcohol.
Party's over. Like, you need to stop fucking around. I don't.
Well, no. I mean,
making a statement. I don't think he's making literally a moral high.
Yeah, but I just mean to say, like, I think Mark Waid does want us to think, well, maybe Superman is going too far because, again, Superman's decisions literally lead to the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. So I think this is the author's way of kind of pointing out at, like, you should feel a little uncomfortable with him saying, like, nightclubs are evil. I think it is kind of them hinting at, like, don't get too comfortable with Superman's
and maybe they were trying to, like,
ideas.
Hammer that point in terms of, like, just the scene and not, like, underlaying Superman's thoughts and processes there. But, like,
and they do also...
Like, I'm just trying to make a statement and I need you to listen kind of thing. It wasn't like... I'm sure that's what I'm sure the writer, I'm sure Waid and Ross had a deeper meaning there, but like,
no, I do think that's the subtext. On the surface,
I think it's just like, clearly Superman's just like, I don't think he's like, don't ever drink again. I think he's just being like, hey, fuck off. Listen to me right now.
Well, no, but I do think that's the point here because when he talks to Aquaman, both Aquaman and Orion, who's now leading Apocalypse because he's supplanted his father, Darkseid.
Yeah.
But they both basically tell the same thing to Superman of like, don't dump your problem on us. Like, if your moral code gives you this problem of you need to stash villains somewhere, don't dump it into the ocean. Don't dump it on another planet. Like, you need to rethink your moral code into something more feasible.
Well, because right after he destroys all the booze with his heat vision, he says, I want you to join the league. And then it goes ... willingly. But it's like kind of a veiled threat, right? Like, if you're not going to join willingly.
And I do... No, go ahead, Peter. Sorry. You can finish.
No, I was just going to say, and then Wonder Woman has a great idea to build a prison. And Superman's like, yeah, that sounds great.
Let's do it. Yeah. But another cool thing about the prison it very much looks like the headquarters in the Justice
the
League
Weekend
cartoon of the evil. And I think that's very intentional.
Super
Again, it's very intentional to say, like, this isn't the correct response.
And the United Nations
know.
like building is
Yeah.
basically the Hall of Justice.
Right.
But it's interesting because that's the home of like the humans that then send like nuclear weapons
Yeah.
at the
And
heroes.
also, they literally call it a gulag. Like, I think Ross and Waid are being very direct in, this is not the correct answer. And don't view this as the right solution.
Let's
I do like Aquaman's line when they try to dump the problem on him. I did like his line of 70% of the earth is my kingdom.
Yeah.
And if you can't handle, if you can't handle the 25% of the planet that's in your purview, don't dump it in here.
And
I kind of like that.
He literally is like, man, you're just dumping more shit on me? Okay, fuck.
Yeah, I like that line.
Humanity as a whole is always done.
Yeah, I did like that line from
Let's
Aquaman.
run down some fun cameos in the bar scene. There's a hilarious Flash villains as bartenders. There's Weather Wizard and Captain Cold are just tending bar. There's old ass Man Lobo, which just would go head to head with Superman back in the day. Opposite of Superman getting stronger and more invulnerable, he is just fat and out of shape, and it's hilarious.
He does have nipple rings, which is a Lobo thing. It does seem like Lobo would have nipple rings.
There's a really cool. It's hard to spot, but Solomon Grundy's just standing in the background as like a bouncer in a tux, And then there's Zan and Jane. There's a lot of more Super Friends references. There's Zan and Jane, just as servers walking around in the background. You have to really look hard to find them, but they're there. And then also Marv from the Super Friends later incarnation, where there's just like two human kids that are running around, gets punched in the face by Atom Smasher. There's quite a bit of like little tiny references everywhere. It's pretty.
Also, we skipped it, but back in the Fortress of Solitude, when Superman's doing his farm work, you can see Crypto, you can see all of the super pets he's ever had in DC continuity are kind of there. So there's all these little Easter eggs all over the art.
So after Superman's like, our job is thankless, but we do what has to be done, and he leaves, kind of thing. There's a table that's literally like the Shadow, the Question, Sherlock Holmes. What's it? It
was Rorschach.
Rorschach. Yeah. And Obsidian's there, like Jade's brother.
Is that fucking Spock?
Like, this is hilarious. What's that?
Is that like Spock?
No, I think it's Swamp Thing.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
Spock.
That's Zan. That's the one.
No, the Waid. Oh,
that's the one.
Is that Clarion the Witch Boy?
Where are you looking at Clarion the Witch? Oh, maybe. I don't know who that is. That actually makes sense. Maybe. You mean with the dark under eyes?
Yeah. He's looking right at. He's looking right at you.
He is weirdly looking right at the camera.
Right at the camera.
Could be, but he's really filled out.
There's a lot of fun little things in these pages.
All right,
I love how Deadman's just floating around through the background too the whole time.
Yeah, well, he comes in later in the forefront.
Well, right, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but, okay. So
also, after Superman does his speech, Ollie comes in on Batman's behalf and goes, "All right, you heard of his pitch. Now here ours." So like you can tell, like recruitment's happening. Heroes are choosing sides already.
Yeah, and then we, before he goes to Apocalypse, actually, this happens, but there's an important event where Superman confronts Magog. So, like we talked about earlier, Magog is the reason that Superman retired away from the realm of mortals to begin with. Because actually, did we reveal it yet? I guess we reveal it at this point of time. But what we find out is that the Joker broke into the Daily Planet, and killed Lois Lane
and everyone else.
And during the trial, Magog basically during prison transport walked up to him and just killed him dead.
Yeah.
And that was what.
It's like, how long are we going to let this keep going?
Yeah, right.
And that's what caused the schism between Superman's, never kill, and Magog's, just fuck it. Let's just stop the problem and kill the Joker.
So, in your head, is that Superman going, I don't like where this is headed, or Like, how far down the path is he looking? Because clearly, like, everyone thought he was scared of Magog and like scared of a confrontation and scared of a fight, and that's why he left and with his tail between his legs, so to speak. But in reality, that's clearly not it. So is it just like that was just the last camel, or the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, where he's just like, I can't communicate with these kids anymore. They don't get my message.
Yeah,
and,
I
like,
think it was very much
away from
that,
me, and the people are behind him as well, and like on and on and on.
yeah,
And
I
it's
think
just like,
it was more of a generational. I can't relate anymore to what young people want and what the future is, and I'm out.
That's what's so interesting about, I think, this confrontation for me, because Magog is mad at Superman for basically being like, I was a young hero, and
you left.
First of all, how many times have y'all captured the Joker and locked him up for him to get out to kill more people? Like, I kind of get Magog being like, let's just fucking end this dude, because he's one of the worst people in the DC universe. But Magog is angry at Superman because Superman's kind of like the father figure of the superhero community, and he just abandoned Magog, who at that point was like not a teenager, but he was like a younger hero who needed guidance and needed a mentor, and Superman just gave up on it and just like dipped out for, I mean, again, they don't really go into the nuances of exactly what happened and why Superman, like when he made the choice.
That's why World's Finest is a great book, and you should read it.
Yeah.
Waid gets time to explore that.
The other interesting thing too is that Injustice is that other comic book series about how Superman becomes a dictator when Lois Lane dies. So it's Kingdom Come Superman does kind of embody the essence of the whole like no kill thing. The fact that he was so adamant that they couldn't kill the Joker after the Joker killed Lois Lane is noble. But yeah, the fact that he just like dipped out is not really the Superman behavior.
The first time I read this comic, all of this felt really slapped together and unexplained, and I kind of didn't quite get the relationship going on, and I was like, oh, that's who Magog is? Like, why did we only get 2 pages with him if he was supposed to be a big deal? Reading it a second time with like a little bit more patience and context, it made more sense, but I love the relationship and how honestly Cal, being the older superhero who had retired from the realm of mortals and had just now come back, Magog seems like the more broken man of the two. Even though Magog is supposed to be the younger version and the future hero.
He's by far the more broken.
Right.
I mean, he breaks down in front of him right after.
Yeah, but that's what I really, this time around, appreciated that more, of how they build Magog up as the next generation of hero, and he drove Superman out. And, you know, his problematic, Dirty Harry like Justice shoved Superman out. But then when you meet the real man Magog, he's more broken than Superman. Like the toll that that killing and this new brand of justice has taken has aged him more than Superman. And I
when
really
he takes his
liked
helmet off, he has
that.
like patches of hair, and it's long and stringy, and you're just like, dude, you are
he's a mess. He is a mess of a man. And basically, so the way this starts is Superman and his group find Magog. They go to the nuclear wasteland of Kansas, and Magog is basically single-handedly trying to rebuild buildings.
He's trying to clean it up
and put stuff back together, and it's like he is doing the Sisyphean feat of like putting Kansas back together after a nuclear explosion. And he's just a shell of a man. And at the end of it, he basically begs Superman's group to like put me in jail. I need to face consequences. I was wrong. And to Patrick's point, he basically calls out to Superman, like, you were supposed to be my mentor. You were supposed to show me the way, and instead you ran away. And I was wrong, and people looked to me, and I didn't know what to do, and I killed 1 million people. And I thought this was a really
it's interesting because
great interaction.
At this point in the story, Superman doesn't understand that yet.
Yeah,
like he's still like because he goes like, this is what I represent. This is what like my path led to, kind of thing. And Superman's like, you must be proud, and he's like, proud, you know, like, and loses his shit, and that's when he blasts Superman. And it's just like, he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm not proud of this. You know, like I needed you, you know, like kind of like the emotion behind this scene is huge. And it's so interesting because I thought this was going to be the big fight kind of thing. Like, you think it's going to be like Magog.
Right, you think this is the apocalypse fight, is Magog and that generation.
He's just a broken man that like needed a mentor and needed Superman, and Superman left everyone kind of thing. Just including him. Yeah.
But also, so a design note, going back to the idea of Magog, so you can see his armor, there it is, very cable with that shoulder pad. And also here...
He's got the big shoulder pad and a metal arm.
And look at his eye. That eye is super cable. Yeah,
well, I
so
love
you
that
can
it's
see
the eye
very...
of Horus, though, too. It's not just like a scar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like... There's little cool notes in the design. I love... So when Magog blasts the shit out of Superman... Well, so here's the point. All the other heroes also thought what Magog is thinking. They also thought Superman left because Magog could beat him. You know, and so on and so on. So when he blasts the fuck out of Superman, although we have referenced it earlier that he's way more invulnerable than he once was, so now it's almost like not like he just stands up and goes like, "What's wrong with that? That tickled," kind of thing. But the looks on all of their faces is like, "Oh shit, did he just kill Superman?" And then like the smoke clears and Superman's just standing there, and they're like, "Oh fuck, oh, like why did he leave?" You know, like I think in their heads they're all starting to think like, well, if it wasn't fear of Magog, then like, what was the point? Like, why did he ever go anywhere?
Yeah,
this is one of the things that I was referencing earlier, by the way. Like, Superman's looking down, and it's after the blast hits him, and Wonder Woman puts her hand on his shoulder, and then he says, "We are at war," and she pulls her hand away, and she has like a shocked look on her face. And I always thought that was like in reference to like her going like, "Oh fuck, he's like taking this to the next level." I don't think that's it at all, because she's ready to go that way right now already.
Yeah.
I think she's just like literally temperature-wise going, holy shit, he's way more invulnerable than I ever thought he was, and that was fucking hot. Like, I think she's literally in awe of like how strong he is. It has nothing to do with the words coming out of his mouth. So like, so I'd never looked at it from that perspective, and I was like, I think that's what's going on there, because I think you're supposed to think that she's shocked that he's ready to go to war. But I don't think she is at all. I think she's just like, yeah, it's about time you got there to that conclusion. We should go to war.
I don't know. I think it's both. I think it's both,
but I think it's a lot more of like the... I don't think she's shocked at all that he's like saying these words. I don't know.
I think she is 25%.
Because...
But I think that's part of it, because I do think part of Diana's character is that she sort of relied on Clark to balance out her more warlike side a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think she's a little shocked that, oh, wait, never mind. He's fully warlike now. So I do think that I do think the shock at his words is part of it. It's not just the heat.
I don't think it's so again, like if
Joe,
you look at her eyes,
we've been talking about he's been hot this whole run, dude. The heat didn't just turn on now. That's all I'm saying.
Anyway, let's Orion. Real quick.
I love this scene.
Yeah,
I love this conversation.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Alex Ross, first you see Orion is from a silhouette. You know you're on an apocalypse.
You think it's Darkseid, right? I thought it was Darkseid the whole time.
Is this a scene that was added in later? Because it kind of referenced that in the supplemental material, but I can't remember if it's in my original books or not.
Oh, I don't.
And it does feel kind of new. Like, I don't know if I remember this.
But when I first saw his silhouette right here, 1,000,000%,
like,
I thought that's Darkseid. That is Darkseid.
That's the whole point. That's the joke. You know, it's just like, I've become my father, literally. You know?
Yeah, no, he is.
My hair is in the shape of his helmet.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny because it's like the Superman goes to Orion kind of to pitch putting his prisoners there, but not really.
Yeah, do a gulag. He wanted to do a gulag in Apocalypse.
To Apocalypse to talk to Darkseid and go, "Oh, it's you." You know, or is
no, I
like,
think he knew it was Orion. Yeah, right. He knew. I think the misdirect was for the reader, not Superman knew it was Orion.
Orion is like full of wisdom here, though, because essentially, if you haven't read this, Orion topples Darkseid, takes control of Apocalypse, frees everybody, and then it turns out all of the citizens of Apocalypse actually prefer having a dictator, and they basically force Orion to become a dictator. And so Cal feels like Orion has failed his people, and he makes a comment about how he has nothing to learn from Orion. But Orion makes a comment earlier in the conversation where Superman says, "You're a god. You have the power to change your world." And Orion just says, "Or to destroy it." And that's like exactly what Superman is doing to Earth, like as we speak. And then Superman brings up like wanting to imprison the people that aren't following the rules. And Orion's like, "You can throw them onto my fucking planet. Like everyone here is a piece of shit. Like I don't give a shit." And then where is it? He says, Superman says, "I can learn nothing from you." And then Orion just goes, "That hardly matters." And that was my favorite line of the entire book.
Well, I also like Orion's wording because he says, if you want to emancipate a world from tyrannical shackles, it's not my help you need. Hinting that it's Mr. Miracle, the escape artist, that he needs to get out of shackles. Yeah. Another design note about Orion is his facial expressions are very kind of Orson Welles early film.
Yeah.
That kind of figure. So just to Ross's art, I thought that was kind of an
also
choice.
Is Orion sitting on the Mobius chair?
No, that's just Darkseid's throne. I don't think that's the Mobius chair.
No. You're quite right, Patty. That's definitely the Mobius chair.
No,
I mean, there's blood.
Really?
There's blood
It's
all
absolutely
over it.
the Mobius chair. It's broken and shattered.
I take it back. That is the Mobius chair. Yeah, that is the
There's blood
Mobius
on
chair.
it, but it's definitely the Mobius chair.
Mobius chair.
Mobius couch. Yeah. That's
Were y'all unsettled after reading like Tom King and Mitch Gerads? I've already forgotten how to say his last name. Wasn't it it was a little strange to see
Scott and Barda?
Not Tom, Scott, so eager to like build a gulag for Superman. I was like,
it was strange. It was strange. These were not.
He even says like, "Are you guys in?" And he's like, "Don't say in. It's too confining." And I'm like, "But you're about to build a prison." Like,
no, this was definitely not the Scott and Barda from Mr. Miracle that we know and love. This is definitely different.
It's a logical step to who they were at that time, I think.
Yeah, but then look at, and like we mentioned earlier, the Gulag just looks like the League of Evil Villains.
Well, I love how they build the Gulag in the middle of Kansas, the Legion of Doom. Yes, they build it in the middle of Kansas without even telling the U.S. government that that's what they're doing. The U.S. government
because they can't go in there anyway, Patty. It's just dead Earth. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Refarm it?
But I think, again, the main theme of this book is that, you can't operate as gods separate from humanity. That doesn't work. You can't just lay down religious law and put people in jail and enforce whatever you want. That's what leads to apocalypse. That's not the correct way. What we find at the end is, embracing your humanity as heroes is what makes you more effective. But, at this point in time, they're just going full on, we are Olympians among you, you're ants beneath our feet, and if you don't agree with us, here's the Gulag.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also insane, too, because, just because the inside of the Gulag is like basically like a town square. Like, they're not in cells. But there's a giant hologram of Superman.
It's Superman's farm at the Fortress of Solitude, but for people. It's like a little city that they can all live in, and all they do is fight each other because they're fucking psycho.
But it's just weird that there's a giant hologram of Superman.
But they're like, hey, hang out and just do whatever.
Well, it's a re-education camp. So first of all, the styling, it's styled like ancient Rome. It's all colonnades and Third Reich Roman architecture. And then there's holograms of Superman saying, be good to each other.
We're getting into
issue
3 here, boys.
What?
Well, yeah, we're in issue 3 already. Yeah, of course.
Issue 2, well, not just yet. Issue 2, as I've been trying to say for 10 minutes, ends with Bruce joining forces with Lex.
So the Gulag.
Wait, I love how your idea is like, let's re-educate them, but the way you do it is just going, this is how it shall be. and rightfully so. 666, like, I mean, I assume he's basically a Nazi. I don't know what that guy's deal is, but he's just like, fuck you, and chucks a rock at him or something. And it's just one of those things where you're just like, yeah, man, they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah, but the whole point here, again, this is very Waid and Ross are being very on the nose here, but it's just they've created a prison re-education camp, which is not going to work out.
What do you think about old Barda?
I think a lot.
Badass.
I think a lot about Barda.
That's all I'm saying.
She looks great.
Why? What did she do? I don't even know.
She's just walking down the street as a guard, prison guard. Just being like, fucking stay in line, you pieces of shit. You know, like kind of.
Wow. I didn't realize that was her. She's jacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in that other.
She looks like a super villain.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she's always been huge, but like when it cut to her and Scott building, I don't know, whatever the fuck, or like getting recruited by Superman rather, and Avia turns up. Avia? I don't know. You can't really see her very well, so it's like you don't. But like now, when she's on the street, you're like, oh shit, there she is. Oh, so let me tell you about another Alan Scott-esque misconception I had this entire fucking time. I thought Captain Comet was Adam Strange.
So I did
forever. Too. Like forever. I had no. I don't have a very like deep cut knowledge of like some of those. Is it Fawcett comics or it's not? It's not Fawcett.
No, Fawcett was Captain Marvel.
Captain
Marvel.
Yeah, Captain
like
Marvel.
What's
the other one they absorbed that Alex Ross?
Shining Knight and
yeah, like the Bullet Men, the Bullet Girl, and Bullet Man are from there.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Yeah.
I don't remember either. But like, at any rate, Captain Comet is one of those heroes. I don't think so. Is Blue Beetle from that one? I think that might be Fawcett. I think Fawcett is just Captain Marvel. At any rate, I didn't know who Captain Comet was. I had no recollection. So like, I just thought that's clearly Adam Strange as an old man. Like, so like even later on, he says Comet died, and he's like, Superman's like upset, and I was like, who's Comet? And I guess I'd never paid attention close enough until like this read of this book to go, oh, it's a different guy. Got it. My mistake. I guess a real quick reference here is that one of those like American robots is like imprisoned and one of them isn't, or two of them are and one of them isn't. And Luthor is looking inside the gulag, so he's through her like robotic eye, and he's like paying attention to what's going on. So, meaning like he's got his finger on the pulse, so he's ready to like fuck shit up whenever he needs to.
Yeah. Also, after this kind of gulag scene, we get a vision of kind of the god level people,
the quintessence.
The quintessence, which are
the most useless people.
Yeah, they are
in the universe.
Basic. I don't know how to put it better than that, Patrick. They are the most useless people in the universe.
Well, Zeus, who doesn't do shit but give power to Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, I guess.
Well, neither do Highfather and Ganthet. Don't do shit.
Highfather doesn't do shit.
They don't do anything.
Ganthet, it's like, I think at the time. Currently, like Kyle's the current Green Lantern at the time, and there wasn't a lot of Guardians, so I think he was like the last Guardian. So like it makes sense to be like, oh, like later on Kyle brings them all back to life somehow or whatever. And Green Lantern Corps is very different now in current time than it was in '96, but like it was literally just like Ganthet and Kyle, and that was it.
But I think the main point here is they just said all these god level people just decided to not
are just like, we're not gonna get involved, right? Kind of thing.
And then Norman McKay has a little talk with Deadman. Is Deadman, right? The skeleton guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's just in there because Alex Ross liked Deadman.
He's a fun character.
So I think there's a little bit of something there.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to, because Deadman basically gives Norman the breakdown of who the Spectre is and who he was, and the fact that he was anchored to a human man, but the humanity's gone. And I think that comes back around. Yeah, because
Norman's been confused the entire time. So, like, Deadman's there to...
Well, quick note, do you all know who the Spectre is?
John
I forget his actual name. He was like a detective.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but he was a detective. I forgot his name.
He was a detective and then like became the Spirit of Vengeance or whatever. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. He's very... the Spectre back in the day was very Ghost Rider-esque in terms of like his day-to-day comic.
All right, and then we get a little kind of touching scene between Superman and Wonder Woman where their little romantic spark
Is it touching?
shines through. Well, they touch the lasso of truth.
Yes, but I think this is like the beginning of their disconnect. You know,
I mean, there's some sexual tension there. For sure.
well, there's definitely sexual tension there, but at the end of the conversation, he's basically like, "No, we're doing it this way." And she's like,
"Yeah." Well, they're basically having an
this?
argument about are we warriors or not. Is kind of the argument, yeah. And then we also get a closer look at how Wilson Fisk is manipulating Captain Marvel.
Yes.
Yeah, because you see he's using these brain worms.
I just mentioned the Wilson Fisk thing, and as in he's not like Lex Luthor level like intelligence and/or smarts. It's more of like a Wilson Fisk level kind of thing. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, if you have Captain Marvel, like say you don't have you can't use kryptonite anymore, but you have Captain Marvel in your back pocket. You don't worry as much. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Like maybe he's making mistakes because I don't know.
He's not
foolhardy,
but he's not. The only mistake he makes is he gets played by Batman, and that's just what's going to happen. Batman's always going to outsmart whoever. So I don't know if it really speaks badly on Lex as much as it's just Batman.
I mean,
wins.
yeah, his plan's pretty good until he fucking shake hands with Batman.
Yeah, but
it's just weird that he would trust Batman. I don't know.
I think he just thinks Batman's gotten old and is human. So ultimately, age times wisdom makes you.
Yeah, and I do think there's a little bit of hubris.
Maybe he is on my side, kind of thing.
But there is hubris where, I mean, Bruce mentions that he tried to hack into the robots. Like, I think Lex was maybe a little bit too, figured he could make it work. Yeah, it just didn't work out.
Well, also after the meeting, he's like, hey, let's tell me more details. And he's like, soon enough, Bruce, soon enough. Like he kind of he's obviously keeping some shit, quote unquote, hidden from Batman, even though it's not actually hidden from him.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
But he's been using Dr. Savannah brainworms to control Captain Marvel.
He's been putting worms inside of Billy Batson's ears, and I guess they broke his brain, and I guess they can cause hallucinations of what superheroes can do to average people or something. I don't.
Yeah, I think that's what he's doing. Yeah.
Well, it's basically
turning one of the most powerful superheroes in the DC universe onto his side based on his humanity.
So I have a question though. Do you think Lex Luthor put the worm in RFK Jr.'s brain, or is that a different?
Absolutely.
Worm.
Pretty sure RFK volunteered for that though.
He volunteered. Okay, he just signed up.
Will it give me Captain Marvel superpowers?
Unfortunately, it didn't. It was just.
I really like when he's showing him scenes of his own death, and he's like, "But that didn't happen." He's like, "But it could." It's just little shit like that. I'm like, "That's fine. It's fucked up, man."
A little sneak preview at Martian Manhunter, who's just a shell of a loser.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was mentioning before. They took certain characters off the board, so to speak, in terms of the Waid and Ross. I mean, they were like, well, we want Marvel to be the big bad, so to speak, versus Superman. So but if you have Martian Manhunter just fighting on his side, it's there's two Supermans and one Captain Marvel. So they basically were like, I guess let's just write him into this corner where he tried to feel everyone's brains or something, and he just shorted out his own head or something kind of thing. And I kind of like that. It's they at least acknowledge his existence, of course. But then Bruce is like, "Hey man, what did you feel, or what do you think?" And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "All right, you've done enough. Just go fucking rest."
I would have liked a little more.
It wasn't a fuck this character kind of move. It was a really nice homage to this guy's fucking super powerful, so we have to move him off the board. But at least Bruce is going to acknowledge all the hard work he put in over the years, being on the Justice League endlessly and blah blah blah.
Spectre says that he opened in a desperate attempt to understand the human psyche, he opened his mind to literally
to the whole world.
Everyone in the
so
world.
It was too much. Yeah.
He finally, in one terrible moment, opened his mind, and I think that's the key thing there. It shattered him, but he's also still kind of using him, which is
crazy.
It's very Batman, but it's very Batman of him. Yeah, it's very Batman of him.
But I'm just I love that anyway.
Yeah. And then we also get, so at this point in time, the Flash, actually it's kind of cool. The Flash notices Norman McKay interdimensionally looking in on the Justice League and kind of tears him out of the time stream into the present. And McKay kind of comes face to face with all these heroes. And this is one where Superman's pretty scary.
Real quick, in that moment, I just love this because like Superman's like looking down on the Earth and he's just like, Germany's clear, everything's fine in the Middle East, like everything, like we're good here, you know, Australia's fine, Italy's fine, you know, kind of thing. Meanwhile, all the old ass Teen Titans are just hanging out going like, Superman's fucking losing it, man. What's with this gulag? He can hear you. He can hear you. Shut up. And I'm like, what did you do? You're in the fucking room with him. Of course he can hear you. He could hear you if you were in Australia. You're in the same fucking room with him. And I thought it was so funny. I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? I thought you guys were
I want to make a point of this little panel here of Power Woman.
About to take Norman's head off, like for no fuck reason.
She looks good.
Is that
what the fuck? Is that what happened to Donna? What happened to her? Why did she age so terribly and every other?
Because she's not a full Amazon, right?
Yeah, she's not full Amazon.
She's made from fucking clay at this point, right? At this point, she's identical copy of Wonder Woman.
Is she?
Oh my god,
I don't think so.
She had the most convoluted backstory ever, but I'm almost positive she was.
Yeah, but I can't like. I agree with you that she has the most convoluted background ever, which is why I can't say what her current backstory was.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Yeah, I couldn't tell you at this point.
But I'm pretty sure she's like more regular human than Amazon. But that being said,
she's like below
Ross and Waid both like used her to highlight that Diana was like immortal. So they're like, she could be just like Diana, but like, why don't we go down the other road where we show how much she aged to like offset how clearly fucking immortal Diana is? And I don't like it because I don't like seeing her old and decrepit and yet still fighting crime for whatever reason. But like, at the same time, I'm like, okay, I get the dichotomy that you're going for here with like highlighting Wonder Woman's like vitality through Donna's, you know, less than stellar aging. But you're right. It is weird. It's a weird move. You know,
she even like next to the other Titans, and I get that Dick and Roy have masks on, and Flash is just energy. But like, she just seems like she's a lot older than the rest of them.
Patrick, you don't know what life she's lived. You know?
Well, I mean, Aqualad or / Aquaman now. He gets a pass because he's Atlantean.
It's true. I mean, Roy
doesn't look that much better.
Roy was a drug addict, though, right? And he looks better than she does.
I guess
He's a recovered drug addict. He's not a current drug addict.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just.
No, you're right. She doesn't look great. You're right. She
doesn't look like someone who should be fighting crime right now.
No.
Well, I think the key is she still has her powers. She's just aging.
Well, but she can
still punch a dude.
And Patrick, you feel free to edit this out. She looks overweight.
That's what I'm getting to. She hasn't.
She looks overweight. Like
she hasn't. She's not physically.
She looks
fit.
like Adam Eve's parents.
No, exactly.
gross, fat Midwestern people.
Look at her right there. This is fucking middle America, like eating cheese curds at McDonald's body type.
You know what I really like? I mean, they don't ever even speak to or about him, but Cyborg's design is really cool. I really like Cyborg.
Yeah, he is
and they later use that in like modern comics in like I don't know, maybe early 2000s or maybe like late 90s. But like, I love that. Like, he's just given into the cyborg shit and it took over his whole body, but now he's like liquid metal, so he's more human than he ever was before. And I'm like, I just fucking love that little like. There's also a brilliant little piece in the end of this with him. But we'll get to that.
Okay, but so again, Flash pulls Norman McKay out and he kind of confronts the Justice League. But before he can get too far into anything, alarms go off because there was a riot in the Gulag. Who could have guessed? And so so the Justice League's attention gets drawn elsewhere. At the same time, Luthor, who's been kind of fomenting rebellion in the Gulag as part of his plan, is basically about to activate Billy Batson, but then Bruce Wayne is like, oh, I tricked you.
Well, so the key there is that that's
on.
the one piece of information that Martian Manhunter was able to give him, is that he's not currently Shazam / Captain Marvel. He's just Billy, but old. And I like love that little bit. But then it's equally awesome that, like, for some fucking reason, even though he has Wally's daughter there and other people of actual power, he's like, you guys just take out this old ass group of old men.
Yeah.
And my other old man friend will chase down Lex Luthor. Meanwhile, I, also old man with no powers and an exoskeleton, will run after Billy Batson, who all he has to do is say Shazam. And it's all fucked.
But I do want to say,
okay.
In Bruce's defense, I think because Billy Batson is not mentally stable. Yeah, he didn't want to freak him out. Like if Catman lunged at him, it would freak him out.
Yeah. No, and I like it. It's actually kind of awesome.
Unfortunately, it didn't work.
It's hilarious
because
that after he punches
tank.
him, though, he steps on his throat so he can't say Shazam, which I think is.
That's a very Batman move.
Batman is shit.
It's a very Batman move.
it's fucking great.
But unfortunately, the tank breaks and the worms spill over him, and he freaks out and says Shazam.
Yeah, the worms are falling all over him. He fucking PTSDs and yells Shazam, and he's fucking gone, man.
And then that's that. And then in the meantime, the Justice League prepares for war, and this is when we get Diana's eagle armor, which looks pretty cool.
Yeah, this is fucking pretty cool. Badass, dude.
She has this winged, kind of American Eagle winged armor, and it's pretty badass.
It's just she's just covered in gold. It looks fucking amazing. I mean, they did it in Wonder Woman 1984 and in live action. And although that movie is horrible, it was still badass to see that suit in live action. I was just
disagree about that part. It looks way better here.
It does look better here.
Yeah,
it's still cool to see it in real life.
Also, she has like an American kind of bandana around the suit.
Well, she's just wearing the American flag.
Yeah, so it's just all of it's very like Trump Tower 1980s, just gold in America. It's very
good old America.
Also, she and Superman kiss.
So that's the key. Like the gulag overspills, and Green Lantern's like, "That's all going to hell. Get down here." And I'm just like, "Why were you there? I thought you were up in space." But all right. I think so. This kissing scene, I think, is fucking like, I don't know what. It's adorable because she's just like looks at Clark like, are you serious, bro? Kind of thing. Like, he already said we're at war now, and then in this scene, she's like, so the world's finally turned completely topsy turvy. How do we handle this? And he's like, I don't know. And she goes, well, then I do. We're going to confront the prisoners and give them an ultimatum. They must surrender. And he's like, and if they refuse, and she goes, then it's war. We're at war, like you said. And then he's like, but you can't have a war without people dying. And that's when she's like, you fucking adorable idiot. Like, it just kisses him. And I love how Norman's like, and the kiss was the most dispassionate thing you've ever seen in your life.
It was completely devoid of passion. Yeah. It was a final farewell.
Brilliant. I just love that. I mean, like, really good culmination to their whole relationship that's happened up into this point in the book. Really good. Anyway, Clark fucking after 5 seconds later just jets out of the fucking Green Lantern place, busting a hole in the wall. By the way, I don't know how many heroes are still up there. I don't know if you can breathe in space.
Well, but they also
punch the hole in the side of a space station.
Well, also the page before that, Wonder Woman breaks the table, so they're just destroying Green Lantern's shit.
I feel like Alan's gonna get back up there and be like, "What the fuck?"
He's like, "What the hell? Like, why is my house
I made this
destroyed?
Nice table. I made this nice space. You just busting hole. You could have just opened the fucking door. You're Superman."
But Superman's goal is to go yell at Bruce, and this is where we get the moment that I mentioned.
Bruce's help, but I think it's interesting that like it's at this point that he's just like, now I need Bruce. Like I lost Diana. Now I need Bruce again.
Well, this is back earlier. I mentioned this, but this is what I really love about their two characters is Superman basically yells at Bruce and says like, look, we disagree about everything, but the one thing that neither of us will like ever cross the line of is life is sacred and we won't take that.
Yeah.
And that's what, and I really liked that they just kind of like as two people, they connected on that one thread of like neither of us is ever going to take a life. We agree on that. And so Superman kind of plays on that and I mean, Bruce
one
kind of
thing
says
Bruce
like,
gives him is Marvel. Or the fact that he exists. I guess
Yeah.
Superman was like, huh? He's alive? And he's like, yeah, man. And he's dangerous. And you have to be ready for that.
well,
Which
Bruce
is so funny,
basically
'cause he's
says,
absolutely not and gets blindsided as fuck.
well, but Bruce basically brings it up because he says, you know, Captain Marvel is in play, and so I can't help you. Like, I can't do anything against Captain
Yeah,
Marvel.
like, what am I going to do? You guys are going to fucking clap your hands and then my bones will shatter. You know, like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do?
Also, art note.
And then he shows up anyway because he's fucking Batman.
Well, of
Sorry.
course, but art note. Superman looks very Christopher Reeve, right here.
You think so?
Yeah, that's very Christopher Reeve.
Another art note. I don't know if you guys
I don't
noticed
think he
when
looks like Chris Reeves at all.
when Superman leaves the Green Lantern space station and flies to
Yeah.
Earth, he flies through the Earth to get.
Yeah,
to Bruce.
he doesn't fly around the planet and go to Bruce's house. He punches through
he
the
goes
Earth
directly
and pops up.
Which would cause would that cause magma to bubble
Wouldn't
up,
it?
or
Would it
No,
not?
be a
it's fine.
problem?
It's
I guess
fine.
not. It's fine.
It's totally fine. He'd just
It's
have a
fine.
tiny little bit of lava stream off his body, and it would just land in the water. Everything's fine.
But then Superman next, after yelling at Bruce, flies to the Gulag where the battle's going on, and as he's about to get to the Gulag, just bam, Captain Marvel slams the shit.
Not only
into
that, but a
him.
lightning bolt cracks open the Gulag too. So like, it's all out. Marvel's making a move on two.
And then you
fronts.
get another Patrick. Here's another like '50s bodybuilder body for you.
Yeah,
Look at
I love
that.
that actually. Like I like
I think it's
that
great.
Alex Ross style. It doesn't
How do
always
you
work
feel
for me,
about
but
not a giant package, if you know what I mean? Look at that.
you know, it's a little
Not the
you know,
biggest. He's not packing the most heat.
I guess I shouldn't feel weird about it at this point because he's not a little boy anymore.
He's an adult. He's canonically an adult. He's canonically an adult
He's canonically in it all. That's fine.
with a proportionally smaller package than you'd like.
I love. So we haven't talked about through
Snyder suits?
all of this.
Are any of
No,
these?
no.
None of these are on the Snyder
No,
Suit scale
none of
because
them
they're
are
not
Snyder.
chiseled
Not
enough.
Bach?
They're not
mass
chiseled enough.
wise. But yeah,
Mass-wise.
Masked
all
are
of
there,
them.
but the definition
Cut,
is
like
not.
marble. No.
These
But
are on
so-
like 1950s looking dudes with like plaid shirts. This is not Snyder Suits. Yeah.
With plaid shirt or just overalls. One thing we haven't like really. I mean, we've talked about it incessantly, I guess, but like Norman and Spectre are there in almost every scene. But this scene in particular, when like Marvel confronts Superman, the panel beforehand is just Norman going like, "Oh fuck!" Like he's just like he's freaking the fuck out. Spectre's just watching, just oh here it comes. I just love that. Like again, we're reading this kind of through his eyes, so we're not referencing him a whole lot. But like it's a really, if you pay attention to everything that he's going through while it's happening, it's like that's it. It lends itself to what you're feeling while you're reading it.
And yeah, and so next chapter, the issue 4 is the battle. And so is this the first time in comics that Superman and Marvel fought? Because I know there was a Justice League Unlimited episode where the two fight each other, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was a spectacular episode.
But in comics, was this the first time that they've fought each
I
other?
think so. I don't think like not to my memory. Like Captain Marvel going up against Captain Marvel was very, or in today's words, Shazam was very like underplayed. Like they kind of just it was a piece in their pocket at DC that they never really used a lot. Which is why Alex Ross was like, "Oh, I love all these characters. Let's throw them in," you know, kind of thing. But
well,
like,
it works great because
them making Superman versus Marvel was like that was a big. I think this might be the first time they've ever.
It might
really
be,
fought.
right? Because it also works because one of Superman's main weaknesses is magic, and Marvel is magic powered,
brilliant.
so it's a good matchup of.
They mentioned the
both super
lightning
strong.
strike thing as being somebody else's idea rather in the extra shit, and I don't remember who they said it, but it was never like used or whatever. They were like, "Wouldn't this be cool if like this happened?" And they were like, "Fuck yes, let's do that," you know, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
it's been
that's
done
one of
a
the
lot
best
since.
But like,
Yeah,
it's one of the best fucking things in this fight. You're just like, holy shit!
there was a
that's crazy.
cool. I think it was DC Online or Unlimited Online, but there was some video game where the opening scene was kind of like the League of Villains destroying the Justice League. And one of the scenes was Black Adam was like fighting somebody, and the Flash was about to hit him, and he called down the lightning right as Flash got to him and basically obliterated like the Flash and 5 other heroes with the lightning. This was kind of cool.
Norman at this point is like pleading with the Spectre to intercede or like do something, and he's just like, what have we been doing this whole time? And he's like, I can't, not yet, like this is, you know. And he's like, what also, in God's name needs to happen?
Were any of you
you know,
confused by the UN nuclear pilots look like Red Robin symbols? Did that confuse anybody?
The Blackhawks or something. It's a thing.
They're like a.
Is it the Challengers of the Unknown? No, it's a separate thing.
Forget. I was gonna say Black Condor, but that's not right. It's something else.
I think it's Blackhawks. Could be wrong.
It might be Blackhawks.
Well, Blackhawks is a professional hockey team for Chicago.
That's not it.
I'm not sure it's
that's not why.
That seems like it would be a copy. Yeah. It is Blackhawks? All right.
Yeah.
But that confused me because I was like, well, that symbol kind of looks like Red Robin. What is that guy?
That symbol is, well, it's I guess it's reverse of Red Robin. But one's a robin's head, yellow on black in a circle, and the other one's a hawk's head, black on yellow in a circle. They're totally distinct things.
Batman comes back in his cool little armor, his little flight armor. He and his gang arrives, and this is the apocalypse that Norman McKay has been fearing. It's just all these villains fighting. Wonder Woman stabs Von Bach through the chest.
It's interesting because that's the piece that makes people go like, "Oh fuck!" Like Superman's team is willing to kill now, so suddenly all bets are off, and it's gonna fucking go shit crazy. And I think it's kind of interesting that that's like what does it, sort of.
And so Wonder Woman and Batman kind of start fighting because Batman kind of notices, hey, you're killing people now, and so they fight, and she kind of like
she's basically like, we're gonna finish this with or without you. Like your people and you are way out of your league. And he's like, why? Because we're here to save lives rather than take them. And she's like, fuck you. You know, kind of thing. Like it just escalates. Like Bruce just keeps saying shit to piss her off, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah, and she kind of chokeholds him into the sky, and above the cloud cover is when they notice the nuclear warhead airplanes flying towards the Gulag, which is bad. So they take, I think, all but one out, which is the problem.
Well, so the interesting conversation here is that Bruce, even at this moment where she could just fucking rip his head off, is still like, hey, you know, like, you want to redeem yourself as an Amazon, then let's keep fighting. But if you want to, I don't know, be a true hero, like, let's do what we always do. And then that's when they separate and go fly towards the planes. And it's just kind of a silent panel of them just looking at each other, and then they fly towards the planes. And there's 3 planes, they only take out 2. So obviously a bomb starts to drop. But like that, I don't know. It's like they reconcile in that moment versus like Superman and his reconciliation was earlier, you know, like,
but there's it's also nice because it points to the history they have together, and then B, I do think there's just something sort of almost innocent to this idea of, look, let's just do what we know how to do. Like forget all the details. Like let's just save lives. Let's just save lives. That's what we do, you know. And I kind of, there's something sort of pure about that instinct of forget the details. Let's just go try to save lives. Let's go destroy these warheads. Like it's just, that's the first step. Let's do that. But one gets away, unfortunately. And then again, we're condensing a lot because there's a lot of like cuts and back and forth, but
there's a lot of fights going on, so it's not like it's a lot of story. But
long story short, go ahead. Yeah,
I just want to mention the Superman Shazam fight, and the thing that I like love about it is just the subtlety of him saying Shazam, but then he super speeds backwards away from where the lightning bolt would be, because it classically would hit directly on him. But the way he's like utilizing his speed to move out of the way of the lightning bolt to hit Superman is fucking awesome as fuck. I love it. Oh, you're right. Patty, she does. Nightfire does fly away with him.
Yeah.
Nice
And then-
guy.
And basically,
Why? So I didn't know if they were like in the Green Lantern bubble, later on and survived that way. I was like, interesting. So she just did. She sees her dad like bleeding out on the ground and just picks him up and flies away.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then
They
this
fucking survived a nuclear explosion.
And then, the fight ends with, so Shazam realizes there's a nuclear missile coming down, and so he kind of shrugs off. Superman. What really happened? Superman flies off to kind of sacrifice himself. Shazam instead grabs Superman, throws him out of the way.
This moment is amazing. First of all, he says great. Shazam, and he says enough, and he moves fast enough to cover up Billy's mouth and hold him in place. So the lightning bolt hits him, so he's no longer Captain Marvel, he's Billy again. And now all Superman would really have to do is twist his hand and it would just crack his neck in half, kind of thing. But he doesn't do it, and like the fear on Batson's face as Superman's hand is around his mouth, one, stopping him from transforming again or hurting him with the lightning, but two, he could kill him in like a millisecond. And I just like that is such an interesting scene to me. I just love it to death. But Superman doesn't use that to use his power. He just goes like, let me reason with this fucking brainwashed kid.
Well, even the dialogue though, when he has it on his mouth or has his hand on Billy's mouth, it says Superman's palm spasms around Batson's jaw and Batson whimpers. He's crying while he's happening.
That's pretty hot. Yeah.
Very hot.
But so
it's over.
So
I'm gonna die.
While Billy Batson is unpowered, Superman flies off to stop the warhead. Then Billy says Shazam and repowers, flies up to Superman, grabs Superman, throws him to the ground. Shazam flies to the... I'm going to call him Captain Marvel. I think it's stupid to call him Shazam.
Yeah, we've been calling
Then Captain Marvel flies to the warhead, grabs it, and says Shazam again, causing lightning to strike the warhead and detonate it in the sky.
The visuals of the panels, because it's a 2 pages in a row of 6, like 3 and 3, 6 panels a piece kind of thing. And him looking up with tears in his eyes and just whispering Shazam. Superman's jetting into the air. The lightning goes past him, and then Superman kind of turns behind him to see what's going on. Like just this beat for beat is just fucking spectacular. Billy grabs his ankle and throws him back down, and Clark's like, "I didn't mean you go stop it. I meant either let it hit or,
But the other cool detail is as he's swung back. As he's thrown back, Superman tries to grab Billy at his cape and grabs the cape off him as he falls back. Is a cool detail.
So good. Because Superman's plan isn't, let's let Billy sacrifice himself. He's like, I'm going to do this. Either you stop me and let all the superheroes die, and humanity therefore lives or whatever, or his plan is never to have Billy go up and try to stop them.
Yeah, but it blows up in the sky, and so the nuclear explosion kills less people than it would have. We do get a cool little platoon shot of like Superman, like Willem Dafoe with his arms down.
The panel, the full page spread beforehand of all the dead bodies is just spectacular. Oh, that's what I was going to mention. There's like, of all the bodies, they're all like kind of currently in fighting poses, sort of like they're still fighting, and Cyborg's like melted or I don't know, dried out liquid metal body has his hand up.
Yeah, it looks like
he's gonna somehow stop it.
It looks like Pompeii.
Cool.
It almost looks like Pompeii kind of like frozen in action as they die kind of things. And then Superman's pissed off, so he flies to the UN and is basically about to kill the UN, which is, I guess, a thing you can do. Just murder the UN.
He's gonna kill. He's lost it. He thinks everyone died, and he's gonna go kill the people that killed his people.
But then
makes sense. Norman is
Norman's
fucking
big moment.
furious that like Spectre isn't in her, and he's like. Spectre literally goes,
Norman,
right, farewell, Norman McKay, and he's like, farewell, fuck you, fuck you, take me to him, I can reason, like, and just scream. So he reasons with and calls him Clark for the first time the whole book, by the way, which I fucking love. But I love the way he's like, let me talk to him right now. Like, he still has to reason. Once Spectre transports him there, he still has to reason with Spectre to let him, like, enter the real world or whatever again. But yeah, man, it's all about Norman talking Superman off a cliff. Like,
well, yeah,
the hero showing up just makes him feel better. He's like, oh, so there were survivors? Like, wasn't about them.
But one thing that I do question is what was the Spectre's plan if Norman had to talk him into letting him talk to I don't understand what the Spectre's plan was all along.
I think
he seems surprised that Norman should talk to Superman to try to stop the apocalypse.
Well, I don't think the Spectre ever really knew what the plan was. I think the Spectre just knew that he was supposed to take Norman to certain places, and Norman was the one that was going to decide what happens. Yeah. Like, Norman's actions were what was gonna...
Just like all gods, idiot and uncaring.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting because, well, it's to that point, though. Superman's like, who are... And then he just stops and he's like, why are you here? And Norman says, to bear witness. Like, I don't think... And I think that's a valid statement. I don't think he was there to, like, shift, anything one way or the other. I think he was just there to, like, watch, as a human. Amongst gods, it was the fact that he couldn't not interject into the situation that saved everything.
And but Norman kind of spells out the main theme of the book. But he mentions talking to Superman. It was the gift of your own humanity. You never had to question your choices in any situation, any crisis. You knew what to do. Right? Here's the key. But the minute you made the super more important than the man, the day you decided to turn your back on mankind, that completely cost you your instinct. That took your judgment away. So that's Norman's point, is when you decided to separate yourself from humanity as a god, that's when you stopped being able to really make these judgments accurately. Yeah. And that's what led everybody towards the apocalypse.
Like, whether it's like, whether you were there or not, or whether you let Magog go or run rampant while you left or whatever, like, all of those decisions are based upon that kind of thing.
But the other point that I like about this is because the main point of this book that's interesting is we had old school Golden Age heroes were perfect gods, wonderful. Then again, like we mentioned, the 80s, post Frank Miller, everything's gritty, everything's human and gritty and violent. And this book is saying that, those original Golden Age heroes can still be human, but that doesn't mean they're violent or they're killers or they make compromises or anything. Humanity doesn't mean Zack Snyder, grim, dark violence. That's not what humanity is. Humanity is compassion. Humanity is not killing people. Humanity is compromise. And I think that's a nice message that this book is making. Yeah.
The ideal of what the DC heroes represent, I think, is very realized in this story. And in such an interesting way that it's like, one, I do love, like Patrick, I do love future storylines and stuff. But like, so it's interesting to say, like, how are my heroes going to turn out? Like, that part of it is just fun. And I love the redesigns of costumes. But like, as the story goes, like, they're held on such a high pedestal by also the author and the artist, like, so, and that's kind of how I feel about them. So like, I see a lot of my own feelings towards these characters in the way that they're written and drawn in this. And I think that's why it hits home so much to me. There's some interesting visual cues with Magog in the fight as well, that are very subtle because he's not a prominent player in the last fight, but it's also post the fight. But he's lost the helmet. He doesn't have the giant shoulder pad. He's less Cable in 1990s, like, Rob Liefeld design. And he's kind of fully, like, just as we were kind of talking about in the scene with him in Kansas with Superman, like, he's on his side. He always has been. He's just misguided. And he needed Superman to be like, I'm back now. everything's going to be okay, and he seems fine. Like it's like he's, I don't know. It's interesting because it just seems like he's healed in a way.
He also
Just by
I just
Superman being
noticed
back.
he full on has a metal left arm.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. No,
literally
he's
Cable.
literally Cable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally Cable.
It's literally Cable.
Uh,
All right. Well, we get a couple epilogues. I don't think we need to go into them too deeply, but like,
Well, the main one. Well, so we do get kind of a shot of Norman McKay and Spectre saying bye to each other, and Norman going back to his congregation, which is great. And then the real epilogue we get is 1 year later when Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman meet up at Planet Krypton.
well, real quick before that, Wonder Woman comes to Clark, and he's, you know, he's putting up gravestones kind of thing, and she gives him the gift of his glasses back, which is like quote unquote his humanity, because it's Clark and not Cal.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those things where I'm just like, I love that fucking moment. Like that, I don't know. To me, that like makes the whole book. You know.
Yeah,
If
well,
it
it's a very direct
It's a physical
visual
representation
cue. Yeah,
of
it's
what
a
we're supposed
strong
to be
visual
thinking and
cue
feeling.
that he's become human again, right?
But
Also, I have
don't
real
know.
questions
It's just
about
one-
where he got this plow.
He obviously crafted it with his Kryptonian technology.
I don't
Come on.
know where you
Also,
make that
Crypto's
plow.
down there on the ground, just like, yeah, man, plow those fields. I'm a good dog.
Well, he's about to plow a new field, an Amazonian field, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, because they kiss and it's full of passion. After
This
he gets
kiss
blasted.
is passionate.
This
Yeah.
kiss is passionate. And also
All right.
at the end, she just goes, "Take care, Clark," and he's like, "Take care, Dinah." Like you're like, you guys are about to.
They're about to hook up.
You're about to fucking cause some
all right.
tsunamis if you. Fucking
1 year
see
later,
the ocean,
we get
you know what I mean?
we get the real full 1 year later epilogue, and that's at Planet Krypton, which is like the Planet Hollywood for superheroes. And so Superman and Wonder Woman invite Batman there because they have a proposition for Batman to be the godfather of their baby, which he guesses because he's the world's greatest detective.
Surprises Superman with it too. He doesn't know. Not the pregnancy, but the Godfather part.
The godfather part, yeah. But Bruce knows because he's the greatest detective, so he knows that he wants.
He doesn't know that part. He knows they're
He's
pregnant.
also
He
surprised by
doesn't-
the Godfather part.
He's surprised by the Godfather part.
No, but he guesses that they're pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Diana's put on 2 pounds of weight.
He does fat shame. He does fat shame Diana because she goes,
That's
"How did you
fat
guess?"
shaming.
Well, she says, "How did you guess?" And he basically says, "Like, well, you used to be hot and now you're fat."
I disagree completely.
That's exactly what he says. Where's the?
He doesn't.
I can read it to you right now.
I know it from observation.
For
I
an
know
ageless Amazon of perfect physique, you've put on a pound or two. That's literally saying you
That
used
was
to
my
be
first-
hot,
That's
now
not
you're
fat
fat.
shaming. That just means I've known you for 80 years and you've been a flawless, perfect human being, and your body is slightly different, so I can tell. Like that's
And now
not
you're-
fat shaming.
Body's
That's-
no longer
He
flawless.
didn't
Exactly.
say you put on
He's
20
just
pounds,
say-
Diana.
But then he says there were other signs, and
It's
that's the
a
gray hair.
pound or
Is that
two.
right? Why does Diana have gray hair? Is the baby?
Because she's
like-
not a virgin anymore.
Is that what that means?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about the gray hair thing.
When you're not a virgin anymore, you get
The
gray
weird.
hair.
So on that
It's-
note, Patty, he doesn't explain that one. He just goes, "There were other signs." I mean, he just says there were others. Like there was other clues, and it
Yeah, but
just
it's
zooms in on her hair, and there's
Yeah.
like I don't know 4 silver hairs in amongst her black hair, and I'm just like,
Well,
what
it's
does
also
that
so
mean?
another
Are you
an
less
art
immortal
note.
when you get pregnant,
But I mean, an art note about Alex Ross is
or does that
His-
just speak to a mother's pain?
well because this panel, right, where you can see it, it's basically looks at gray hairs, but it also just looks like all of Ross's art in this run has super harsh lighting. Like it has this
Oh, yeah, there's a
really
lot of harsh lighting.
direct, harsh light and like crazy strong shadows, and it's hard to kind of directly see a lot of stuff. And so this is another panel where I was reading it thinking, is that gray hair or is that the light shine? Because it's just like a giant harsh
so
spotlight.
it is light up above, but it's focusing on the I don't know 4 or 5 hairs that are above.
Okay,
the
so it is gray hair. I don't know.
Yeah,
he
it's gray
he
hair,
needs
for
to
sure.
work. He needs to work on lighting to make it a little bit less harsh.
I mean, he could have made the lighting not white, and it would have like worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like highlighted the silver hairs by being white or whatever. But like, you know, it wasn't. You know, sure. if you're gonna knock Ross after painting these many panels for that one thing, I'm gonna be like, yeah.
No, I mean the lighting comment is a general throughout this run comment. The lighting is very harsh all over the place in general.
I think it's interesting that Bruce's takeaway from being the godfather of their child is that he'll have influence over one of the most powerful beings in the world.
No, that's
not about love and it's just like Batman. I'm surprised you're going to give me influence over your child. That's very Batman. I'm not you.
Bruce has a great track record of taking care of kids. I mean, only one of them has been bludgeoned to death by Joker.
There's like a quick note about that, and I was wondering if that's what it was talking about. They talk about like the zealot, like something being raised by zealots or something like that earlier in the books. Fuck, I wish I knew the moment. But there's just like this one throwaway moment where Bruce is like, yeah, well, that's what happens when you're raised by zealots. And she goes, oh, you'd know something about that, wouldn't you? And I was like, wait, what is that like a knock at him and the Robins? Or like, I don't know what that fucking was referring to.
He was making a knock at her and Amazons, and I think she was turning it back on him and his little cadre of
and his
children,
little clique of
child
like
army,
followers, right? Yeah. I thought so, but I was like, I'm not quite sure.
But they do, from their end, Superman and Wonder Woman want Bruce to look after their child to kind of, so that their child can grow up with that kind of human element.
Well, they want
that appreciation of humanity.
They want that Ma Pa Kent like upbringing on some level, like just some sort of connection to actual humanity.
Because nothing says folksy Midwest Ma Pa Kent like smart. Bruce Wayne, fucking
with,
1%er.
Like 1%er? Yeah.
He lives in a cave under a burnt mansion, and they're like, that's a great place for our kid to grow up.
It's rebuilt. It's a hospital now, Al. Come on.
In the JSA run that is Ross's sequel to this, Bruce Wayne lives for 10 more years. But Clark and Diana have a bunch of kids.
Nice.
Clark lives to be like 2,000 years old or something.
Nice.
I forgot about that.
Well, Clark, in this...
We should read that sometime. I'd like to reread that.
We could come back to... But Clark is basically a Viltrumite in this. He lives forever and grows stronger the older he gets. He's kind of like an...
It's almost like the Viltrumites were modeled off of Kryptonians.
That was another thing.
Like one came before the other.
Is that I forget who they're fighting, but the modern day Superman like gets his ass handed to him, and then the villain goes to punch Kingdom Come Superman and just like breaks his fist on his chest. So it's like, oh yeah, he is much stronger.
Nice. 1 second, my audio's messing up. My audio's fucked up. I keep hearing this.
Wrong?
Does this pass the Bechdel test? The Bechdel test. The Bechdel test.
Every time
does this pass the Bechdel test? The answer is probably no. This one doesn't. I don't think it does. I'm pretty sure this does not pass the Bechdel test. I can't think of one scene where two women speak.
Nightstar and Avia talk to each other about what team they're
for half a panel. Okay, for half a panel. That's not. We're not going to give that a pass.
They're also discussing whether they should join their father's team, so I don't think it counts as like a. If they were like, "Hey, so who are you dating next week?" Like, what's going on in your life?
We got to be honest.
It's just an innocuous conversation, but like,
we got to be honest.
They're just talking about the protagonists.
As good as Kingdom Come is, it does not pass the Bechdel test. We got to be honest. It just
I think Makamori test is good. I think Wonder Woman has some growth.
Yeah, she does go from willing to kill to less willing to kill.
Yeah. No, she has
after having killed.
Redemption arc.
Yeah.
She goes off a cliff and then redeems herself.
She's definitely. I mean, she could definitely be a sexy lamppost as far as I'm concerned, but she's not a sexy lamppost. No. But I mean, she is drawn as if she could be. Those thighs.
I mean, there are a lot of sexy lampposts in this because there are a lot of attractive women with zero dialogue. So
Power Woman basically has Power Woman has one line when she grabs Norman McCain, just says like, "Who are you?" That's basically her only line.
Yeah, and then Superman's like, shut the fuck up, woman.
So just Mark Waid, Alex Ross, you can do better. You can do better.
Yeah, come on, guys. It's 1996.
This does not pass
Get with it.
The Bechdel test.
Get with the times.
All right, let's go to recommendations. I recommend it. As we've already talked about, I love this. I love the thematic content. I love all about the kind of paying homage to Golden Age heroes. in contrast to post Frank Miller hyper edgy heroes, but at the same time modernizing the Golden Age hero in some way and making them more human. So I loved all about this. Again, Alex Ross's art, not the biggest fan, but as a book, this still works. It's still great. Definitely read it. I give it a thumbs up and recommend it. That's my recommendation on this.
Fully recommend for sure. I guess the only thing I would add is I really do, although I'm not like the biggest fan of his art in general, also in terms of modern superhero, but like this, it just works. The acceptance of fragility in human superheroes and like what that might look like in a future scenario, I thought was very interesting, because usually it's just like, oh, he's old but he can still fight, like Frank Miller style, and just the Batman's just like, yeah, I need an exoskeleton if I'm gonna fucking do anything, kind of thing. And that's just one of them. There's many, like Oliver and Dina Queen look great, you know, like they look old as shit, but they look like they can still kind of do what they're doing. I don't know. Ted Kord.
They look better than Donna Troy. I'll tell you that. She didn't.
Yeah. She's aged. I thought there was some really cool like character Easter eggs, depending on like what character you're looking at through whatever lens. But like the fact that Obsidian was kind of always really close to Jade / Green Lantern 4 or whatever you want to call her, but like Green Lantern is her name in the book. But like, I don't know. It's just like she's always kind of there, and you're just like, but you don't notice him because he's all black and he's in the shadow, you know, like kind of thing. And I'm just like, if you pay attention, it's kind of interesting how close he is to her all the time, and they're brother and sister. And there's just little things like that I really loved. I really loved the handling of the Titans as grown superheroes. Like Wally's fucking fantastic. Dick Grayson's fantastic. I mean, Aqualad / Aquaman doesn't really have a whole lot going on, but he's there and he looks fine. Donna Troy, not so much. But again, I understood the juxtaposition of her against Wonder Woman, so I get it. I like the introduction of Wally's daughter. That she pops up in a bunch of other comics later on. And being a Wally West fan, I was like, ooh, he's got a daughter. And then it just kept going, and there's a lot of cool stuff. Anyway, really liked all the designs. It's a really fun book. Story's great. Recommend.
I also recommend. It's great. A+. Plus.
There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Mobius Couch. That was Kingdom Come.
I think we won comics for the week, boys.
Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
Good journey, Couchers.
Goodbye.